Hello and welcome to WGTC Radio, the official podcast of entertainment website We Got This Covered. I'm Jonathan Lack.
And I'm Sean Chapman.
And we are here to talk about Iron Man 3.
Yes, we are.
Hell yeah.
As we promised last week.
Yes. So we'll be talking about Iron Man 3, in-depth, full-on analysis, lots of spoilers. You don't want this movie spoiled for you, so if you have not seen it, listen to the podcast later. At the end of the episode, as always, we'll be talking about Doctor Who, the Crimson Horror episode. It's near late in the season. I don't know how we're numbering these things anymore.
See, I think my numbering is 12.
Okay.
I think everyone else's is 11. Yours is what? I don't know. You
Mine's
have your
6.
own crazy... Whatever.
Mine's 6 because when you air a season like... Okay, we've done this rant too many times. Yeah. All right, we're going to talk about Iron Man 3.
I'm just saying your numbering just doesn't make any goddamn, real... I understand why you're doing it, but it makes no sense, and there's no fucking way to number it. No. I don't care, how shitty their season itself is structured and turned, internally. It's still a goddamn season of television.
Kind of.
I mean, it's going to be on a fucking box set.
Yes.
At the end of the year, so...
Anyway, alright, so that's the agenda
That's our review of Doctor Who. Come back next week, we'll talk about something else.
Alright, so, anything else you want to talk about before we get into Iron Man 3? Obviously, this is a busy episode today.
I mean, I did play Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon, but I don't want to go into that on this podcast. I'm going to save that for probably next week.
Okay, yeah.
I have a lot to say about that game.
Yeah, have a lot to say about that. We probably want to talk a little bit about, the new Call of Duty sometime that was announced. Just mention that sometime. But today, I think... Today, because we just, first big movie of the summer, and can we agree, really damn good one?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, definitely go watch it.
Yeah, so that's our brief review if you haven't seen it yet. So, lots to talk about. We are going to talk about Iron Man 3. If you've heard one of our podcasts where we break down a movie before, you know the drill. It'll be longer than the movie itself, probably.
Yeah, probably.
So, let's get into it. Iron Man 3.
Yes,
now,
Iron Man the Third.
Yes. So... really quick note, I should say, I posted yesterday on We Got This Covered, my own analysis, written analysis of the movie, so you can go read that if you want to. It probably will touch on some different things that we talk about here, and then here I'll talk about some different things from there. But that's up now, also for full spoilers, because one of the things about Iron Man 3 is, I think this would be a really, pointless movie to review or talk about if you couldn't talk about the plot.
Yeah, this would be a very hard movie to review because it makes that super sharp turn halfway through.
Yeah.
So it's
And even then, I think there's a lot of stuff just early on they're not giving away in the advertisements about the general tone and sort of how it's structured. And these are all things that I really like, and I think for the most part you liked.
Yeah.
So...
it is certainly not... This is not a criticism, but it's not the movie in the trailers.
No.
That is not... I mean, that's kind of the point of the movie, is that it's not the movie in the trailers.
Right. So let's get into it. Sean, what did you think of Iron Man 3?
I thought it was really good. I think it was definitely better than Iron Man 2, which is a movie I still like more than most people. But
I like it a lot.
Yeah. But I don't think it was quite the level for me of how much I like Iron Man 1. I think the action in Iron Man 3 is better than the action than other than the Avengers, any other Marvel movie. So that part is superb. Robert Downey Jr. as always fucking great. They give Rhodey...
Gwyneth Paltrow, Don Cheadle.
Yeah, they give Rhodey a bunch of great stuff in this movie. There's only two things that I particularly dislike about the movie, and we'll obviously get into this more in depth later on. But I don't really love the turn it makes halfway through with the Mandarin not being the true villain of the movie. And then I also think past that point, some of the humor for me becomes a bit too much, and that's about it.
Okay.
Those are my only two. And I should say, I literally just walked in through the door from having seen this movie 5 minutes ago, so I've literally had no time to process it whatsoever other than the drive back to the condo, so...
And I'm sorry about that, because I do think Iron Man 3, for me, is a movie where I watched it, and I probably felt a little closer to you, although I did not dislike the Mandarin twist, but I had to process it, and I took a week to write this piece I put out, and I went and saw the movie a second time with my family, and... I liked it significantly more a second time, and even before I saw it a second time, I liked it more and more the more I thought about it and the more I wrote about it. I think, to me, that is one of the signs I use as a critic, is the more I think about a movie and the movie gets better as I think about it, if it rewards discussion, I think that's the sign of a really good movie. And I think Iron Man 3...
So Prometheus, greatest fucking movie ever, because boy have we discussed that movie to death.
But there we go. But that's the point of that's actually that proves my theory though, is that the more you talk about Prometheus, the more it breaks down.
Yeah.
And that's the problem.
Yeah, it promotes discussion. It's a great movie by your criteria.
That's not what I said the movie rewards, you like it more when you discuss it, was what I was saying. And I think Iron Man 3 for me is definitely that movie. I really love this movie. I think we'll get into this too. I think this movie just feels like something that there's a lot of it that just really felt like stuff I really love in movies. Like it was directed at kind of my sensibilities and tastes that I like, not just in superhero movies, but movies in general. And Iron Man, I think this movie really cements he's my favorite cinematic superhero. So it really hit me. Had some personal things that I really just got interested in with the movie, and we'll talk about all that later. But I really love this movie. I would agree with you, though. I don't know if I would put it above Iron Man 1. Yeah. And I think, to me, I do think this is a tighter movie for me. And I do think, overall, I like this movie more critically. But there's something about Iron Man 1 that is just so magical.
Yeah.
And just there hadn't been anything like it yet. And a movie that really, truly felt like a comic book movie that wasn't sacrificing any of the psychological depth.
Yeah.
And I think Iron Man 1 there's something so fresh about that, even when you rewatch it, that I think they were never going to top that to a certain degree. And I think it's a testament to Iron Man 3 that for me, they came very, very close in terms of recapturing that same feeling I felt watching Iron Man 1 and bringing it full circle. And I think we can both agree Marvel is in a very healthy place creatively.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, goddamn, they keep on making really awesome movies, so I'm happy.
Yes. So where do we want to start this discussion? Do we want to go story? Do we want to go characters?
I think we start the way the movie starts, about 30 minutes in, and then you go back to the beginning.
Okay.
And then you get to that point 30 minutes in that you think when you don't realize at the beginning it's going to just be 30 minutes in, and you think it's going to be the end of the movie, and they're like, oh no, I got to that point 30 minutes, and now I have no idea what's going to happen.
Okay, I have a funny story about that. So what Sean's referring to is before the logos come up, they have the visual of the Iron Man suits exploding.
Yeah, that's in like all the trailers.
Right, and Iron Man, or Tony Stark, starts his narration for the movie. Which, by the way, those are all Shane Black stylistic things. He does that in all his movies and things he's written. And so I think it's kind of fun to see again, like, you know, Avengers very much being a Joss Whedon movie, Iron Man being very much a Jon Favreau movie. I like directorial voices being in the mix here, and we'll talk about that more later. But my funny story about that is, so I first saw this at a press screening last week, and what happens at press screenings often is they will have hired security there who stop people from, pirating the movie.
Yeah.
And because this was a public press screening, so there were, members of the public there. They don't bother with that usually when it's just critics. Because they know where we live.
Yes.
Anyway, so...
And they will kill you.
I suspect they will. I suspect they could get Obama to, fire drones at us.
Yep.
So, anyway...
Sharp political commentary coming to you from WGTC Radio.
Anyway, the security guy goes to the front of the theater, and he starts to deliver his spiel, and it's 6:58. The movie's going to start at 7. And he starts talking, and he has to read this message from Disney to tell us about, the security procedures. And the lights dim as he's talking. And the movie just starts. and there's no warning, so everyone's scrambling to get their 3D glasses on, because they were showing the screening in 3D. So I'm putting my glasses on. Tony Stark's talking, but he's shouting, and everyone in the theater is still talking. So I completely missed that narration and that scene. And so I just had, the basic foundation of the movie gone for me. He finally went away once the Paramount logo came up. And then it was well, okay, hope I can follow this. And I was, obviously.
Yeah.
That's not...
Yeah, it's not a hugely, if you miss that, you miss everything in the movie.
No,
I mean, it is kind of important.
Yeah, and I liked seeing it a second time so I could be okay, he's saying kind of the key thematic, idea of the movie here, and then we're going to go off on that. But that was just kind of funny, because I'm I saw the shoots exploding, and because I couldn't hear what was going on, I thought this was maybe some kind of, commercial for something else. Because that had been in all the marketing, was this a turn your phones off commercial or something?
Turn your phones off, or we'll fucking blow up your Iron Man suits. Those things are expensive. You don't want that to happen.
How much property damage in monetary value do you think was perpetrated in this film?
Trillions of dollars. I mean, Jesus.
Just for Tony Stark's mansion alone, how much money does Tony Stark have? Because at the end of this movie, he's going to go build new suits. It's going to cost him a lot.
Yeah.
I assume he just doesn't care. He has enough money where that is never a problem.
Yeah, no, it's fucking he's Tony Stark.
Yeah. I mean, he puts Batman to shame with the amount of shit he builds.
And goddamn it, Tony Stark earns his goddamn money, unlike Batman, who just sits around and lets fucking money come in from his goddamn trust fund. No, it's Tony Stark's out there inventing shit, helping people. Batman's just my parents were rich as fuck. I don't even know how they got all that money.
Alright.
My dad was just a doctor. I don't know how we have a fucking mansion. It's fucking, we own the Wayne Enterprises. I don't even know. What is this?
So this is kind of interesting. This is only the second movie in recent years I've seen that does this thing where they start the movie before the studio logos.
It's really weird. It's just like it was like the movie just starts. It's no, and it's like you don't realize how odd that is until like you watch a movie that it happens because you're like, oh, why?
The first movie that did that recently was Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows 2 did that. They did the recap from part 1 before the logos for part 2.
Previous on Harry Potter.
Yeah. Something like this. So yeah, I think it's fine, and it's like once you get over it, it's like that's not a problem. Or anything,
but it's really disconcerting because it's just like it just starts, and you're so used to having the build up of the logos that you're like, oh shit, I have to pay attention.
Yeah,
stuff is like shit is blowing up already. Like holy shit.
Yeah. So. But, I think it's a good image. That is not the image that obviously closes the movie, but it feels like the proper one to start it with, that this is kind of the focal point of his story, is that he gets pretty much everything taken from him.
Yeah.
So, but let's talk about that first scene. So we start, this is a very much a Shane Black thing to do. Very similar thing is done in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, where we open with a flashback that basically informs all the story to come. And so here we have 1999 in Switzerland.
Yeah. Which, by the way, I loved that the I'm Blue... that song was playing, started playing, over the logos, and I was like, what is this, fucking 1999? And then it's like, 1999, I'm like, yes it is, apparently, Jesus! Man!
That's kind of great.
Yeah.
But okay, so in 1999, Happy Hogan has a mullet. I think we need to talk about that. That was fucking funny.
Yeah.
Jon Favreau is really funny in this movie.
Yeah, yeah.
I really like what Happy gets to do. But anyway, it was kind of nice, I think, because this movie definitely feels like at least a close to a portion of the Iron Man story.
Yeah.
Coming full circle, it's nice to go back and see a little bit of old Tony Stark when he was just...
it was interesting to be like, oh shit, yeah, this is Tony before all the Iron Man stuff. It's just like, you haven't seen that since the beginning of Iron Man 1.
Yeah, and he's being a dick, and I like that we saw Yusef. Yeah. From Iron Man 1, and just we saw the moment where Tony just completely blows the poor guy off. Mm-hmm. And then so this kind of we meet Guy Pearce for the first time, who's a damn dirty hippie.
Yeah.
Rebecca Hall, who does not age one bit between 1999 and 2013.
Yeah, yeah.
Good for her.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, Rebecca Hall has probably not aged much in the last 10 years. She's a beautiful woman. But anyway,
weird detour, but
weird detour. But I thought I just think, and also Tony obviously looks older than he did in Iron Man 1 in that scene.
Yeah.
That was kind of funny at the end credits. Robert Downey Jr. has aged more than I thought. He looks really young in Iron Man 1 now.
Yeah.
So anyway, but we're getting off track.
Yeah, I don't know why you're going off on this aging thing.
What do you want to say about the 1999 sequence?
I said my piece. That was really funny that they used the I'm Blue Dabba song, and then I was like, what is this, 1999? And then it was 1999.
Okay. So
I already said that story, so.
All right, well, where do you want to go next?
Fuck, what happens next in the movie?
What happens next in the movie is we come back, and it's just sort of and it's just kind of a nice little introductory scene to show how Tony is doing new stuff with his suits.
Guy Pearce is going to be the villain. Here we go. Okay.
Well, not yet. We're a little way. I'm saying the next...
but
you asked what the next...
But that's why that 1999 sequence is there, because Guy Pearce is going to be the villain.
Well, obviously.
Guy Pearce is going to be the villain.
Yeah.
I mean, he's going to be a villainous character.
Yes. So anyway, we come back, we've got Tony, we find out we're back, it's Christmas, Tony's working in his workshop.
That was a weird thing. Let's take a little detour here. I wish this movie had come out around Christmas, because the whole thing takes place leading up to Christmas, and makes a lot of references to Christmas. And I was like, were they going to release this movie around Christmas? Why am I watching this movie now?
It's because it's a Shane Black movie. All his films are set at Christmas. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, Lethal Weapon. Yeah. So, that's just a thing he does.
Yeah. It's really weird to watch a movie when it comes out that is constantly making reference to Christmas.
In May.
Yeah, in May. It's really weird.
Not that weird in Colorado. We've had a lot of fucking snow lately.
Yeah, but it's not like the cheery, happy, consumerist snow of Christmas time.
Right.
It is the depressing, what the fuck is going on snow of, it's goddamn May already. Could you just stop it already?
I mean, do we want to talk about this? What did you think of having it set at Christmas? I just liked that we got a lot of nice snow imagery in Texas.
Yeah, I liked the, I thought it was, movies are good with, Die Hard was set during Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, here we go. It was just really weird, because Christmas, it's such a thing to have movies set around Christmas come out around Christmas that it's weird when it doesn't happen.
Although it happens a surprising amount. Die Hard came out in June. when it first came out.
Obviously, I didn't see Die Hard in the theater.
And It's a Wonderful Life. Miracle on 34th Street was intended to come out at Christmas, and they put it out in May also, and that is completely a Christmas movie.
Yeah,
there's nothing else to it. So I think those are kind of...
I think Iron Man 3 is, that part where Tony Stark goes and delivers presents to all the good boys and girls. This is a fucking Christmas movie.
I think that would be kind of awesome if we saw Tony Stark Saves Christmas. Animate that.
He gives everybody a repulsor beam.
He does give the little kid... if that kid really did use that weapon on a bully, he would get expelled and thrown in jail.
Yeah. That kid would probably be fucking deformed.
I like how they don't make any pretenses when we get to the kid that Tony Stark is somehow good around kids. Yeah. He's terrible around kids.
Yeah.
It just so happens that this kid is, he gets Tony.
Yeah.
They're connected, as he says. I'm joking. But anyway.
As the kid says first.
But if we're going a little sort of linearly through the story, the scene I was trying to say, we come out of the 1999 flashback. It's Tony still doing some narration, but we're in his R&D. As he has, I love that he has this little Post-it note on the door. Yeah. It says Stark Industries R&D, and he's now we're getting to sort of the next development of the Iron Man costumes, where he's got the little microcomputers in his arm, and they just attach to him.
Yeah.
What did you think of having that as the suits in this movie?
I liked it. I didn't like the... It's a weird thing that has been happening, that happened with the first Amazing Spider-Man movie, and now Iron Man 3, is that you take the design for, well, not the original design for Iron Man, obviously, but the most famous design for Iron Man, the red and gold suit, and then you, up the secondary color to which it's, kind of takes over the suit, so it's, now it's gold and red. Amazing Spider-Man kind of did the same thing with blue. It's and I don't think it's terrible or anything, but it's a really kind of ugly looking design for the suit of it being
You mean Mark 42?
Yeah, yeah,
okay. Yeah. I think it's not my favorite of the Iron Man costumes, but I mean he wears a different Iron Man costume in every action sequence.
Yeah. It's not a particularly big deal in this movie because that suit honestly does not. It's not everywhere, and it's the main focus or anything.
But I kind of like that they build it to the end where Mark 42 is intentionally kind of lame.
Yeah.
And so I like that it has a very, very nice fulfillment of that at the end where he uses it to blow up Guy Pearce.
Yeah.
So, because, man, after...
Spoilers. God, we haven't even got to that part yet. Don't jump ahead.
After Prometheus, we would all like to trap Guy Pearce in some metallic armor and blow him up.
That's what this movie missed. This movie missed Guy Pearce being in old man makeup. Why couldn't... God... I mean, Shane Black made a huge mistake. Did he not see Prometheus?
We can agree this was a much better role for Guy Pearce than Prometheus, right?
Any role for Guy Pearce is a much better role for Guy Pearce. Other than if he was cast as a 5-year-old girl, that would be maybe a little bit better role for Guy Pearce.
All right.
Guy Pearce is cast as the proper age range, so yes, it is a better role.
But one thing I was really happy to see in this movie, because, this is the first standalone Iron Man not done by Jon Favreau. I love that we got to keep sort of the same feel of all the scenes where he's just tinkering with his equipment in the beginning. Because I always love seeing his I say studio, I don't know, his lab or whatever you call it. It's kind of 8 different things for him.
I'd call it a lab.
Okay.
He's doing science there.
Right. Science. His lab, and we see him working on the different costumes, and then when he's doing the investigation, he has
suits, please, they're not costumes.
Suits, sorry.
They're fucking iron armor.
So his suits, and he's got, I love that when he's trying to figure out what happened to Happy, he's got the big holographic display, he's looking around, it's all bullshit.
Wait, where the fuck did he... How did he get know about where did that holographic display find out the exact location where Happy was, and then the fucking dog tags on the ground? How the fuck? What was the how the hologram thing was cool? Where did he get the fucking data?
That happens in all Iron Man movies though. It's there's all this
that one bugged me. Yeah. That one particularly bugged me. It's just where did you what?
But anyway, so we start getting things in motion here, and I think one of the things I would want to say about Iron Man 3 right off the bat structurally is that obviously it's a very different structure than Iron Man 1 or 2, and I think what's interesting to me about this is that this is so not a big superhero epic in the sense of the Avengers or something.
Yeah.
Where really it's not about moment to moment, every scene has to be big and entertaining and show-stopping. It's... and that can work, obviously.
Yeah.
I think Avengers kind of did that in a way that really worked. But this is very much kind of a slow burn pace where we're building things. Certain scenes are not, standouts. They're just, we're getting things in place. And I think that works very well for this movie. The first act and then the second act, there's a lot of scenes where it's just, we're putting story pieces in place. We're solving the mystery. But, I think that's interesting. So kind of, I skipped a scene, though, because obviously, once we get through some of the introductory stuff, we meet the Mandarin for the first time in his first of 2 or 3 video packages we see. So you really liked these.
Yeah, I thought they were really well done. I thought Ben Kingsley was awesome. Like, he had a really menacing, sort of charismatic presence. I liked sort of the angle of, like, let's look at all the shit America has done and be like, hey, guys, we're kind of assholes sometimes. I always appreciate that when a movie that's American-made and comes out in America can say, hey, we are not fucking perfect. It's kind of like Bioshock Infinite of like, that Wounded Knee shit really fucked up. We did fucked up shit a lot. Yeah. And it's like, let's not kind of ignore that. I was kind of hoping it would build on that, which it didn't, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah. It's very much, obviously once we get into the Mandarin stuff, and I think watching it through a second time, it's really interesting to see how those clip packages are constructed to make that Mandarin message that the Guy Pearce character wants to send, and very much being all these different elements of American iconography with American guilt. And, they're very well constructed sequences, and as you said, Ben Kingsley is having a lot of fun doing the voice. And, yeah. So, but basically, the first... I don't know how the act divisions. It's obviously Act 1 ends with the destruction of his house.
Yeah,
but we have some big stuff, going on where we meet. Aldrich Killen comes in and talks to Gwyneth Paltrow. Gwyneth Paltrow comes home and has a giant bunny rabbit waiting for her.
Yeah,
that was a good joke.
Yeah,
and then a really good joke. She comes in and she thinks Tony's in the Iron Man costume, but he's not
in the Iron Man costume. Oh, that Tony.
I feel like Gwyneth Paltrow or Pepper Potts. Would she just leave Tony at the end of this movie at a certain point? Like, she's been through so much shit.
That would be kind of a... because there's a part later in the movie, there's the whole part where, a huge part of, and I really liked this, of Tony's character arc is that he has PTSD after all the shit in New York. And I thought they handled that. That was, to me, the best part of the whole movie.
Absolutely.
How they dealt with that. But they have the whole scene where he's having, a horrible nightmare. Like he's in bed with Pepper, and he's physically spasming, and then he's, so stressed out that, he's been having anxiety attacks and shit. And the Iron Man suit comes out and, almost attacks Pepper, and then she, just leaves him. It's and I get that, you'd be freaked out, but he's Tony probably should have gone to a hospital. He was having a serious fucking anxiety attack. He could have had a heart attack right there.
Yeah, and
it's whoa! It's come on, let's
right.
Let's not just leave him right now.
Yeah, and I think that's true, but I think, I was joking about her leaving him, because what I think, another thing I really love about this movie is really tackling, okay, now that they're a couple, I like that this is not a Hollywood romance.
It's not.
It's a very mature adult. They have ups and downs, but they want to just work through them maturely.
They have ups? When did they have an up? There was no up. I saw no up in their relationship.
She has him come into the shower with her. She's like, I love you, and after...
That's not...
He gives her... He has his big... I would say an up is when he completely pours his heart and soul out, and she's able to understand that and process it.
Yeah, and then, come that night, it's oh man, you almost had a fucking heart attack in the bed. I'm going to sleep outside. It's thanks, I was clearly calling out to you for help, Pepper. Tony should leave her! Fuck that, Tony should leave. Tony should find a nice girl who understands. Should go date She-Hulk or something.
Alright, anyway, what I was just trying to say is that I think, but you can argue about these scenes, and it feels like genuine human responses as we go back and forth, and I think it's really interesting to see how, these two people live together, and it's not just, unbridled passion or something. I think it's I think they've always tackled that well with the Tony Pepper stuff in these movies, it feels very mature, and I really like that. So, anyway.
Seriously, Tony, she's not good for you, man.
Pepper gets, fucking thrown 200 feet and, fucking blown up and all this other shit because she's dating Tony Stark. That's kind of...
Yeah.
If we're going on this scale.
He's a dude with problems. He needs help, and that's my point. She's doing absolutely nothing to help him. It's her fucking fault at some point. Leave him or help him. Choose one. Don't just stay there and do nothing.
All right. Well, anyway, she meets Aldrich Killian. We see we hear some more about Extremis. Were you interested that they went full on and did Extremis in this movie? And
I'm not familiar with that story arc in the comics. I've never read it, so I can't speak to.
It's apparently not. It's not really the story from the comics. It uses some character names, but basically, I was interested to see them take an element from the comics, and I don't know much about Extremis, but I went and looked it up online, earlier, and the general gist of it is the same as it is here, and it's of the power at least. And I think it's always fun when they bring in something like that and really commit to making it kind of the main conceit of the movie.
Yeah.
And I think it makes sense that after Avengers, you can push the pseudoscience of Iron Man even further than you would before, because if they had brought in this Extremis bullshit in like film 1, that would have been ridiculous.
Yeah.
But, by this point, I think you can do it and make it feel plausible within this universe they've established.
Yeah, although, honestly, the Extremis stuff, other than when he breathes fire, is not particularly more implausible than the Iron Man suit in the first place.
No, but, he does breathe fire, and I have no idea where that comes from.
Yeah, and then never comes up again. That's such a weird moment. Just you can breathe fire? Apparently, this probably would have been a useful combat maneuver, just taking on Iron Man in the last act. But.
Well, maybe we can get the Iron Man 3 fighting game where that's Guy Pearce's special move.
That's like your Hadouken?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they have to make it in 16-bit.
What? Why?
I'm just kidding. Anyway, all right, so we're talking story. The first big action sequence involves Happy Hogan. I thought that was kind of fun.
Yeah. He gets his ass kicked and blown up.
Yes. So, poor guy.
He gets blown right out of the movie.
Yeah. I mean, I did not expect Jon Favreau would be in, the whole movie as a main character, but... I think in the first act he probably gets more to do than he does in the other movies.
Yeah.
But that's good, and I think it works well. They've established that relationship enough that I can see why that would set Tony off and have his ego come out again, and also his insecurities in challenging the Mandarin, and just doing something spectacularly stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the point where, Pepper and Tony have their argument about, no, we're not staying here, of course, and I just think that's a really funny scene, because it's why would Tony want to stay there? He just challenged a terrorist. Does he not know what a stupid thing he just did?
But, I mean, if he leaves, he looks like a pussy. You don't tell a terrorist your home address and say, I'm going to leave the door open, and then just, not be at your mansion anymore. How much a fucking pussy would, he's Iron Man.
Okay.
He's got to have some self-respect.
No, that's
It was a dumb thing to do in the first place, but he should have leave.
He could have Pepper leave.
Yeah, he should have had Pepper leave, for God's sakes. He fucking told a terrorist his home address and said he was going to leave the door open.
Yeah. So anyway...
But he is Iron Man.
But that's where we build to in the first act, is we get that fucking fantastic action sequence where his house gets blown the fuck up. It's a lot more brutal than I thought it was going to be. You watch his little helper droids die, and it's sad.
Well, the robots are they're not. They're just machines. They're not like Jarvis. They're not people.
It's so sad.
Yeah.
Those machines are such a big part of the Iron Man mythos on film.
Yep.
I'm kidding. But anyway, I do like those little robots, and I felt surprisingly sad when I saw them, burst into flames. But anyway, that's a really good action scene. I like that he puts Pepper in the suit.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah, that was a... Yeah, I thought that whole action scene was really well handled, even though... It's this is just one of the things. This happens actually twice in the movie, where you find out he has this secret card of here's my ace is I've got all these suits that I can just remote control. Say, hey, go kick some ass in the basement. I can pull a few of those out, take care of those helicopters. Yeah.
Okay, so anyway...
There are a few plot holes.
Yeah, and I don't know whether those even count as full plot holes as much as just...
Well, I don't know. It just seems because the same thing happens later where when he's, in the town and, the first time he's fighting the extremist people, with the lady and she,
you mean the thing that he...
Yeah, and he's got, basically, the 38 special, but it's repulsor thing. He could have just popped that off of the lady in the first place instead of, blowing the whole building up.
But then he would have had nothing to fight James Badge Dale with.
Yeah, but he didn't know that dude was there yet, so... He didn't know that...
Tony Stark is very smart. He's very perceptive. He can see into the future.
Sure.
Anyway.
Scriptwriter vision.
All right, so, basically. Anyway, but
Need to up the scale of the action scenes.
Yeah.
So.
But I think this is when I realized, the big house scene, that this movie had really good action, because that scene alone probably has more action than all the action in Iron Man 1 and 2 combined.
Yeah.
It's nice to see an actual, extended, long, complicated action set piece in an Iron Man film, because in the Jon Favreau movies, it's basically punch, we're done.
Yeah, it's so anticlimactic in Iron Man 1 and 2, the action is just we attacked the villain with one attack, and it's over.
Yeah.
Great fight. But no, in this they do a really good job. They just make really creative use of the Iron Man suit and like the way it sort of like flies around, and like they have a really good, like the effects team had a really good sense of like the weight of the suit, like how like it sort of flies with like the repulsors push.
Yeah, and it was really like this one. I definitely felt the Iron Man suit effects had come a step further, where you really. It always looked like they were an organic part of the scenery. I could never kind of pinpoint the moments where they were. Obviously, in the back of my mind, obviously, if it's just flying around, it's just
it's CGI, but you're not thinking about it being CGI while you're watching the scene.
And then it's really seamless if they want to have him in an actual like physical model of the suit. It doesn't feel like jarring or anything. So, I mean, the effects in these movies have always been really good. But as you said, the weight and the mechanics of the movement, that whole scene, what I like about the action in this movie so much is that it's always. Tony is always the underdog in these scenes because his stuff's fucking up, or the enemy is just so overwhelmingly powerful, or in this case, it's all taking him by surprise, and all his shit's getting blown up. So, I mean, he gets the crap beaten out of him in this movie, and that's what you like to see in a good action movie where you just beat the hero down. So that works. And I also think it's worth noting. I think I really like how the action always stems from what's going on with the characters. There are never really any just random action scenes. There's always a very clear narrative purpose or a very clear character purpose, and usually both. And I think this scene really does a good job of kind of, at this point in the movie, climaxing all the character stuff that's happened so far, where there is a downfall for Tony based on his own actions and bringing his own anxiety and insecurities to a head. And then, that very clearly sends him, back to Tennessee, where they're not back, but sends him to Tennessee. Where the story of the movie kind of gets underway proper, where he really starts investigating. He doesn't have anything, and I think we were talking about this before we recorded the podcast, but it's really, really nice that at this point Tony's really not in the suit again until near the end, until the third act, and it's just about him using his own wits to solve the case. Mm-hmm. So.
Better detective than Batman in the fucking Christopher Nolan Batman movies. I thought that was really surprised that, hey, even though this isn't really an Iron Man thing, he's like sort of doing detective work right now.
No, absolutely he is. And I think that's really fun because I think obviously there's no reason Tony Stark can't do stuff like that. He's a genius. So I thought it really worked to have this be a very investigative kind of movie. And I think that's something that, maybe puts this above Iron Man 2 is, and this is a thematic thing in Iron Man 2, but Tony is not proactive at all in that film. He's basically just waiting for stuff to come to him, and that's not as interesting as him very actively, putting himself on his feet and trying to figure this out, even though all his tech is gone and he doesn't, have any resources in his immediate disposal. So, this is also where we meet the kid, Harley.
Yeah, and this, I just like this stretch of the movie when he's in Tennessee and like all his shit is destroyed. This is my favorite part of the whole movie.
Okay,
it's like because this is where you see Tony really having to deal with his like literal anxiety attacks and like sort of having to come to grips with that and having to be really proactive. And I really like his sort of. I think the best humor in the whole movie is him and the kid, like their relationship and like sort of quips back and forth. I think really work. Particularly like that whole scene where he's like driving off and like the kid's like, I'm cold. Yeah. That whole scene really cracked me up.
The kid was good.
Yeah.
And I think that could have gone so horribly, so easily. That's all you need to say.
Yeah, we could have had an Anakin Skywalker.
Right. But it worked really well. That kid and Robert Downey Jr. had good chemistry. And again, they didn't suddenly, just because Tony Stark is interacting with a kid, make him good with kids.
Yeah.
He says, "Dads leave, don't be a pussy."
Yeah, that was the line where I was like, yeah, okay, this is going to be a good relationship he has with this kid. And, like, obviously not a good relationship, but in terms of like how much I'm going to enjoy watching these characters interact, I'm going to have fun for the next 30 minutes.
Oh yeah, and the kid gets his reward at the end where he gives him a full like Stark workshop. Does that mean like that kid is going to be in juvie by the time he's 18? Like just from the shit he's going to make? Like he's going to make napalm?
Oh man, it's Iron Man 4, it's Iron Man and Iron Kid like teaming up. I don't even know if Iron Man ever had a sidekick. But if he can now.
Okay.
Iron Kid.
I mean, he's had War Machine in the movies.
War Machine's not a... When I mean sidekick, I mean like Robin or Speedy. You know?
Who's Speedy?
The Green Arrow's... You don't know who Speedy is. Get the fuck out of here. He's not... He's no Kid Flash.
Okay.
At least... I know you don't know who Kid Flash is, but the name Kid Flash explains everything you need to know about Kid Flash.
Yes.
He's no Impulse. There you go.
Who the fuck is Impulse?
Basically, he's Kid Flash.
Okay. All right. So yeah, the stuff with the kid is really good, and I also like that the kid is able to help him in ways that feel organic to those characters, and it's not just the kid is suddenly like some super genius.
Yeah.
He's a good kid, and he can help Tony out, and they're able to.
He's got a potato gun.
Yeah. And then Tony gives him a full-on weapon.
Yeah.
And thank God he only uses that against James Badge Dale.
Yeah.
So anyway, some good scenes there. It's very just fun to kind of go around this small Tennessee community. I like the very sort of evocative photography with all the snow, and just he's piecing things together because there was this bombing here. Basically, the main mystery of the movie is all these bombings are happening.
Yeah,
and I also think the movie does a very good job doling out what we see versus what Tony sees. So we see enough to kind of have hints that this is all going to be about extremists, but not enough that we know what the answer is.
I felt like I figured out because at the first bombing that this is extremist, this is that.
Oh no, we know that. But we don't know every step of why this is happening.
Yeah, you don't know the villains, but you know that's the details of the bombing themselves. There's there's obviously something to do with the military, and that was the part that's that they changed what I was expecting. I was expecting it to be that the Mandarin was somehow dealing, the extremist thing was going to be some sort of super serum, sort of Captain America type drug. It was going to end up being, and Mandarin was secretly dealing that to American soldiers, and then some of them were overdosing and fucking exploding.
Yeah.
That would have been cooler.
Anyway, so we have, but all I'm saying about that is, in a movie like this, I think, in a mystery like this, it's good to have us be maybe a step ahead of Tony Stark, but not too many steps ahead.
Yeah.
So we kind of, we're engaged, we're interested in seeing if he's piecing it together correctly so we can gauge how well he's doing. But then, when the big revelations hit, they hit both of us and Tony Stark.
Yeah.
So, I'm trying to think if there's any other big scenes in here. We have a very good action scene, I think, where it's just the two, the chick and then James Badge Dale are in town, and it's just Tony Stark completely without any Iron Man accoutrements.
Yeah. That was because that was where he just had to be smart, and that was because obviously he's not some sort of physical powerhouse, and he's going up against people who have fire powers ostensibly. Yeah. And I liked he had to use his wits to fucking blow up an entire house and kill the lady.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's that, and then is the next thing that happens. He's driving around, and then he gets Jarvis back online, and that's when we find out about Miami.
Yeah.
In here, I do want to talk about, you talked about all of Robert Downey Jr.'s, or Tony Stark's anxiety attacks he's having in this part. I do want to mention, I think Robert Downey Jr. is so fantastic in this movie.
Yeah, he's fucking... he's obviously been great in all the other ones, but I think he's given, sort of more juicy material here because, where the character's at emotionally, that it's he really is able to have that come out.
I think this is a good chance, before we move on to the Mandarin stuff, let's talk about this thematically, that, they do very clearly follow up on the Avengers, and I think of all the characters in Avengers, this might be the most important one to do a direct kind of psychological follow-up on, because, Thor's ego isn't going to be hit because he was in the Avengers. Cap is probably fine, that's his duty, he's a soldier. What's going to fuck with Cap is he's in modern times.
I don't know, Cap's going to be, I'm really curious to see Captain America 2, because...
But that's not directly, that's not just Avengers stuff, it's...
But he also had to deal with, there's also an alien invasion, and Thor is a god, and here's this giant green man, and here's this dude in a fucking, robot suit, and oh my god, I'm in the 21st century!
But Cap... he's a very down-to-earth guy. He doesn't have the underlying anxiety and psychological issues.
It's just he just bottles it all up really deep down inside of him, and then 10 years later he shoots himself.
Right.
There we go.
And we'll get to there. Captain America 4, the shooting. Anyway, so, but anyway, I think it's really awesome that they follow up on the Avengers stuff, and that it hits Tony really fucking hard. He has full-blown PTSD in this movie.
Yeah.
And I think it works really well, and I think the scene for me that defines how great Robert Downey Jr. is in this movie is actually one of the smaller ones, but it's where he's driving, and nothing in particular triggers his anxiety flash.
Yeah.
But he knows he has to, get out of the car, he's in the snow, he's trying to breathe heavily, and the kid keeps saying stuff about New York and, fucking with him, but he's just so, you just so clearly feel his pain in that scene. And I think that's the one that, to me, feels the most authentic, because you can't point to any just one singular thing that sets him off.
Yeah.
So, I really love the way they develop that, and how then it's the kid suggesting, why don't you build something that brings him back, and it's that this is the arc of the movie for him, is that he doesn't need any of this other stuff to be Iron Man. He is Iron Man because he is Tony Stark, and it's just about what he has, what he can do with his own wits and his own problem-solving abilities, and that's what is going to heal him in this film. And I think the stuff he winds up getting from Home Depot and then building to invade the Mandarin base, those are all little fun things he does.
Yeah.
So,
there's like another it's just like kind of a weird tangent of the sort of the first anxiety attack that hits him. There's like that. I thought that was like because there's that weird part where he's signing like the things for the kid.
Yeah, he's with Rhodes.
Yeah, and then he hallucinates the one kid asking him, "How did you get out of the wormhole?" or whatever.
Yeah.
It's or are you out of the wormhole or something like that? And I was like, are they going to go in a weird direction where it's like all this movie takes place where during the end of Avengers where Tony is in the wormhole and he's in his mind is in another dimension or something. I just had a weird in my mind for 1 second I saw a completely different movie that I knew this movie wasn't going to be because this just sort of comic book ridiculousness set me off of that could totally be a thing that happens in the comics. And then, this movie ends with Tony dying, and that's, their bullshit reasoning for how Tony's not actually dead anymore when they bring him back a year later for, the next big summer event. But obviously, this isn't comic books, but...
Anyway, but speaking of things we don't expect the movie to be...
Yeah.
We obviously, we move on, he gets to Miami, he gets to the base... breaks in.
Yeah, another just really awesome sort of action sequence of him not having a suit at all.
Yeah.
And how you can sort of see that Tony's experiences, being in combat in Iron Man 1, 2, and Avengers, means that it's even though he's not in the suit, obviously he's still extremely capable. I liked seeing that.
And very stealthy.
Yeah, he's, it's fucking Tony Bourne.
Yep. Tony Bourne. That would be an interesting kind of to do a whole movie like that. But no, he's got the electric glove.
Yeah.
He just hits that guy's head with. And then he gets in and Ben Kingsley comes out of the bathroom.
Yeah. And
I guess this is where we talk about this.
Yeah, and this is what I basically the first thing I said to you when I came in to talk about this movie before we recorded the podcast was this is the point in the movie where I think either this happens and you're fine with it and you go with it. It's you love the movie, or like me, you don't like that they do this, and then it's not that you hate the movie, but it's they sort of kills the momentum and the movie's not as interesting as it was for the first half. So,
and that's what you feel.
Yeah, and I feel that's I haven't had a lot of an opportunity to sort of go online and see what people are talking about, but the little bit I heard about the movie before, I didn't get any of this spoiled, but I had a sense of there was a moment like that in this movie. Of there was a lot of people being the movie was good, but kind of disappointing. And there were a lot of people I love this movie, and this is definitely that moment.
Okay. And I think it's a case where I think we can both see each other's arguments, and it maybe just comes down to...
It just comes down to totally to personal taste. That's what I'm saying, where it's you accept the moment or not. And it's that's just who you are.
So
into it.
So I'll let you go first. Explain what you've kind of felt about the moment and where you went with it.
Yeah, so obviously it's, Ben Kingsley comes out, and he has been set up so far as being, he's the Mandarin, sort of the biggie, the Iron Man villain.
It's the archetype of the Christopher Nolan big villain archetype.
Yeah, he's, really menacing, has a lot of charismatic presence, and obviously he's also one of the more major Iron Man villains from the comic, the only real Iron Man villain I am ever aware of in the comics, because I don't read a lot of Iron Man comics, and even the ones I've read haven't had Iron Man villains in them. So the Mandarin's really what I've got to go on. I knew they were doing something different, but I was expecting him to still be the main villain, and instead it's Ben Kingsley is playing an actor playing the Mandarin, and the Mandarin is just this sort of fake figurehead for the AIM organization that Guy Pearce is heading. And so it's and so he's actually this patsy who's just completely ridiculous. And this is also the part in the movie where, and it's definitely exacerbated by this, I'm disappointed by this twist of the humor became a little bit grating, where it's because it's not only Ben Kingsley is not the Mandarin, he's a complete fucking goof. He's he's a drug addict. He has no idea what's going on. He goes from being a menacing villain to a comic relief character in a second. And that's where I'm well, fuck, because I really like this villain, and I don't really like this comic relief character, so, well, shit.
All right, well, do you want me to explain my kind of viewing of it? All right, I think what you said, you hit the nail on the head of, you get to that moment, and you either accept it or you don't, and I think everyone who sees it is going to have a moment of hesitation.
Yeah.
Because he comes out, and then you have to just think to yourself, what the fuck's going on? because I don't think it clicks immediately what they're doing. But for me, like, it came on like, what the fuck are they? What the fuck's going on? Like, are they really? This is really the Mandarin? And I'm like, I don't know if I like this. And then I burst out laughing, and I just started laughing my ass off. And throughout that whole scene and Ben Kingsley explaining things, I was just laughing so hard, and I just fucking loved the audacity of it. I really thought that was an interesting thing to do because, to be honest, I did not have a read anywhere up to that point in the movie of where they were going to go with the Mandarin. And I thought they had some interesting things with him in the video packages, but we really had not seen him yet. We just heard him when we'd seen some flashes of his face, but it was all sort of kind of covered up and disfigured by, video noise and stuff. And I didn't quite have a read on that, and I think up to this point in the movie, I was still questioning whether this movie was working for me or not. And not in a bad way, it's just this is a movie that builds slowly, and it builds because it's an investigation and pieces are building, and you have to wait until you see the whole to really judge things. And I thought this, to me, was more interesting than just Tony gets there, and his only goal was, he gets there, and there's the Mandarin, and then I don't know what they do at that point. And then instead, this adds another layer to the mystery. It adds some interesting elements of sort of thematic. It's very much mirroring sort of the film's larger discussions about identity and how, a manipulation of image and how, obviously this is a thing Tony is going through. Sometimes the face we project to the world is very different than what we feel inside, and how it's very difficult to get into that and really, dissect that within ourselves. And obviously confronting a physical manifestation of this kind of awakens Tony to these things, and as the movie goes along. And I think it's interesting. I thought Ben Kingsley was really funny. I really liked how much Ben Kingsley committed to both sides of the performance.
Yeah.
And it interested me, and then I just thought this felt more like what this movie needed to be for me, in just that then it becomes very much about not one singular, obviously, okay, Guy Pearce is the villain.
Yeah, he's the singular villain.
But we've got,
he is the one singular villain.
Oh, we've got other villains. We've got patsies and shit.
Oh, they're not villains. They're henchmen.
Yeah, there's henchmen. No, and I just... Yeah.
It's like saying the Dark Knight has, fucking 500 villains because the Joker has a bunch of henchmen that go...
I wasn't trying to say that. I'm being inarticulate. But, anyway. Yeah, I thought it was interesting, and I thought... I thought the way the extremist stuff was working, I thought the mystery to me was more interesting in that it also kind of... It ties into this is all coming back to bite Tony in the ass because he gave the formula to Rebecca Hall. And this is all about the people he's scorned and people who are... It's the same kind of idea as with Justin Hammer in film 2, of someone who is in this same industry who is taking it the other direction. And I thought they did that better in this movie than they maybe did in Iron Man 2. So I liked the direction that this went in, and I think it just is in that moment. Either you find that funny and you like it and you go on with it. And I did like Guy Pearce as a villain. I thought it was someone he could actually fight, but was still an interesting intellectual threat. And also... I think the moment that kind of clicked it all for me is not necessarily the one where Ben Kingsley we get the revelation, but after that where Tony is tied up, and it's a total James Bond scene.
Yeah.
Where he's tied up and Guy Pearce comes in, and Guy Pearce is playing a James Bond villain.
Yeah.
And I thought he was playing actually a very good James Bond villain. I liked him in this movie.
This is where I started really disliking Guy Pearce as a villain, is in that scene. They have a line where Tony Stark is, "You're a maniac," and he goes, "No, I'm a visionary." It's like, well, I'm out of this, because that is the most cliche, bullshit, dumb comic book villain line that I don't like. It's the stuff that Ozymandias makes fun of in The Watchmen. That sort of attitude, and it's so not interesting of a villain, and it's because that's the sort of thing that's the Christopher Nolan style villain avoids that. It's very menacing and legitimately menacing instead of being this over the top, cartoonish, just makes no sense. He's just evil kind of guy, and that's what this villain felt like. That's what Guy Pearce felt like in this movie. It's oh fuck, this is a comic book movie villain. He is this asshole ex-boyfriend, and he's not a maniac. He's a visionary. Whatever the fuck that means, because he's just making people explode. You're the fucking visionary.
And I don't necessarily disagree with any of that. It just fit the tone of the movie to me, and I think the Iron Man movies are comic book films through and through, and I think that fit to me, and I honestly thought we've had so much, such a glut of that Christopher Nolan style of villain in recent years, and I think, I don't know, the Mandarin kind of felt cliched to me at a certain point when they were early on.
You only had but like you said, you only had 2 scenes with him. I thought he kind of felt a little bit cliche, but they had nothing. They hadn't fully developed him. I liked at least the performance and the presence, And I was looking forward to seeing them build him up and like finding out what he was actually doing as a villain. And it's like he's not. There is no build up there. That is all literally smoke and mirrors. And it's like it is audacious and it is interesting. I think intellectually that they did it. I just don't think it works as a movie and sort of like entertaining me. Okay. It's like, well, I was really looking forward to seeing what they're going to do with the Mandarin. I was not looking forward to seeing them develop the Karate Kid villain that is fucking Guy Pearce in this movie. Of this asshole who's an asshole, and he's just an asshole because he's an asshole. But he's a visionary.
You want to say asshole a couple more times?
Asshole! He's just an asshole!
He is just an asshole.
That's all he is. That's all his character is. He's just a fucking asshole. And it's so disappointing, because it's like, that is what is wrong with Iron Man 1 and 2, is the villains fucking suck, and they're just lame comic book villains. Like... And they were like, we're not going to do that, and then they did it. They did it in Iron Man 3 when they said, like, looked like they weren't going to do it. And it's like, it was so disappointing. It's like, fucking goddamn it. Goddamn it. I want an Iron Man movie with a good fucking villain. That's all I want. Iron Man 4. Let's do it, guys. There's literally nobody else to pull because the Mandarin's just like, that's completely shot.
Yeah.
It's like, quite, like, literally just like, to that villain. So it's like, well, fuck. Well, fuck, what are they going to do? Nothing. They've got nothing left. Literally nothing.
Well, I think they should... I mean, this is actually a discussion I've wanted to have on this podcast before, is comic book movies are so beholden to using characters from the comics. Why can't comic book movies just invent a villain? Like, if there are no good Iron Man villains to draw on, why don't they just make one?
I mean, they did in Iron Man 2. Like, that Whiplash, that is not Whiplash. Like, Mickey Rourke's character, that's not a... I mean, even, like, his power is not really, like, his suit isn't really, like, from the Iron Man comics. So because they basically do. Most of the villains do not have a huge amount of resemblance. It's just, like, you know, like they're what they were going to use the Mandarin for. Nothing like the comics. Like, fucking comics is, like, over-the-top Chinese stereotype with 10 magic rings that shoot fire and shit. They were not going to do that for this movie. I was not expecting them to. But it's like, you know, you take the character as a jumping-off point. Yeah. It's like, they could completely make up their own thing, I guess. But it's like, if they haven't made that up in over 50 years of comic books, I don't think they're going to make it, like, they're going to make up a really good Iron Man movie, like, villain.
Okay.
It's like, they've been trying so hard, and the Mandarin was the only one that kind of worked. And it's like...
Well, and I think, to me, it's just, you know, doing a good Iron Man villain is hard. But what worked for me about this is that, you know, is Guy Pearce on this, you know, does Guy Pearce go up there in the pantheon with the Joker and Bane and Doc Ock from Spider-Man 2? No, of course not.
Yeah, he goes up in the pantheon of, like, the villain from Karate Kid. That's where he is.
Okay, but I'm not claiming that he is a great villain, and that's not what my point is here. But I think everything, in terms of what challenges Tony in this movie, the challenges he faces to me are interesting, and they're interesting intellectually, and then they are interesting physically because, you know, Guy Pearce and the other people with extremist powers are someone Iron Man can fight that are not just another Iron Man, and even obviously the villains that are other Iron Mans in the Iron Man film series are really easy to beat.
Yeah.
And these are villains who are not easy to beat.
Yeah, I mean, I did like that... I did like the physical, like, action component of them not being Iron Man suits, and I liked that he was a villain that, like, he could fight. I mean, I didn't want him to, like, beat up the Mandarin and, like, have a fist fight with him like that. Obviously, that would not have worked, but you could still have had, obviously,
like, Loki does not fight.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you don't necessarily need the villain to be the physical powerhouse for it to still be an engaging villain and have, like, engaging action scenes revolving around that villain.
All right, well, let's move on from this point. You know, anyway, we've got Tony trapped, but and then Rhodes is on his way there because he got captured. That's what.
They captured him earlier on.
We forgot to talk about that Iron Patriot.
Yeah,
they fucking painted War Machine red, white, and blue.
Yes, they did. That's like one of my favorite scenes of the whole movie is when the Iron Patriot, like, he's like in Pakistan or whatever, he like knocks down a door, and that's when he gets the call from Tony.
Yeah,
and he's just having a conversation with him, and it's just like, I just love that. Was where I was like, they're giving fucking Rhodey like a good role in this movie, and and Don Cheadle was having a lot of fun with it, and I'm really happy that they gave Rhodey just like a meaty, like, substantial, good role opposite Robert Downey Jr. from like that point on.
Because I think they did some good stuff with him in Iron Man 2.
Yeah, I think they had a lot of good stuff in Iron Man 2, but it's like
I was to be fun in Iron Man 2.
And I was really afraid that he was going to get shoved in the back because he hadn't been in the movie almost at all up to that point.
Right.
So I was a little bit afraid that like that opening scene was like we have Don Cheadle in this movie because he was in the other ones and he has a contract. And I was I was really happy. It was like, okay, no, Don Cheadle's still a part because I like Rhodey. I liked him in Iron Man 2, and I wanted to see more with him. Yeah. And we got a lot more with him, and that was awesome.
And I think that's actually something worth talking about overall, is that the second act basically does not have Don Cheadle or Gwyneth Paltrow. It is mostly free of those characters, and I think that's the correct choice because there's nothing to do with them right then.
Yeah.
But when those characters appear, they really do count. Like, there's no wasted scene with either of them, and I really like that. They're never there just for the sake of being there. And so, Don Cheadle, I love that, when he gets to the compound and is able to escape, like, Tony rescues him. I just love, I also love seeing how Rhodes is able to move through the world out of a suit. That you really see he's a soldier.
Like he's a very good soldier.
Yeah, Don Cheadle's actually very convincing physically, moving around and just, checking corners and doing basic soldier shit.
Although, there's like one thing when I was watching the movie, and I don't know if I like missed a line or something, but like, because there's that whole part where it's like they're trying to like cut him out of like the War Machine suit, and he like gets out and like kicks the dude in the face, and that's when fucking the dude breathes fire and shit. And you're like, well, that's weird. Why didn't they just kill Don Cheadle there? Like, why did he's just sort of left there and then everybody leaves? Right? Like, was I just not paying attention because it's just like he sort of cuts away and then it comes back and Don Cheadle's just there and then he leaves. It's like, where did everybody else go? Like, why did nobody fucking kill Don Cheadle right there? Why did they just leave Rhodey in the middle of this compound when Tony Stark's tied up over there?
Something happens there, and because I remember something happens there. I don't remember the exact circumstances, but I think, because it's a very dense scene, there's a lot going on, and they're cutting between him and Tony. But I think there's something there, that, like, I don't think he's just left there and there's just a massive plot hole, like...
Yeah, like I said, it's just like because I do feel like I missed something, but it was just like really weird. It's like, oh wait, what? Yeah. I thought they were going to capture Don Cheadle, like, or kill him or something, and like Tony was going to have to go save him. He's just fucking there and he leaves because he's in the same room that the dude shot fire at him. So.
Yeah. So I don't remember the exact scene, but it doesn't stand out to me like there was something like I feel like in 2 viewings I would have noticed if there was a plot hole that big there. So. But, if it was explained somehow, I might not remember. Anyway, but the point here is that Don Cheadle is cool.
Yeah.
And
so cool that they just decide not to kill him. Let's just go with that.
Yeah. And Joss Whedon, you better have him in Avengers 2.
Yeah.
That'd be so... that needs to happen. If he's in more movies, do you want him to still be Iron Patriot or go back to a different design?
War Machine. He's War Machine. Yeah. The Iron Patriot.
I know. It was a good joke in this movie.
Yeah. It should be Avengers 2, motherfucking War Machine. Don Cheadle, motherfucker. It's like the poster is just like Don Cheadle. It's like the top, it just says Don Cheadle, like, don't credit anybody else. Just like fucking Don Cheadle, just like big face on the poster. Avengers 2, War Machine.
I am imagining the War Machine poster for like a standalone movie where it's just him arms crossed, like grinning. Like, it'd be great. And Don Cheadle, I've read some interviews with him recently. He's really enthusiastic about this part. Like, he really wants to do more with War Machine, and he'd like to do a standalone movie at some point, and I'd say that would be fun.
Yeah, definitely. Like, it is a character that I think, especially, it feels like Don Cheadle, like, so nailed the character in this movie that is like, I would be totally happy to see a War Machine movie.
Yeah, and that could be another one of those movies where if they wanted to, they could bring in even some S.H.I.E.L.D. people, do some other stuff with it.
Like if you want to have like, if you don't feel like War Machine can like lead his own movie, but you also don't feel like Hawkeye can lead his own movie, it's like, hey, there you go, War Machine and Hawkeye, like kicking ass and taking names
with a Hulk cameo in the third act.
Exactly.
All right, so I think that you could. There's so many great directions to go with this character, and I love that from this point in the movie on, he and Tony are total sidekicks.
Yeah,
kicking ass and taking names. It's a lot of fun. But then the next big action scene we get is Iron Man remotely controlling, although we don't know it at the time. We learn that later. He's going up to Air Force One, and this is another just a really well-done action scene. And, because everyone gets fucking flung out of the plane, and he saves all 13 of them. I don't think the science of that would work.
Yeah, I was, like, expecting... It was really, like, Because while I was watching that scene of he grabs the people and he has to save 13 people, and so everyone grabs onto someone else. It's there's no way that would there's no way all those people would be able to grab onto all those people before they hit the ground. That first of all would not have worked. But it was funny because before I see that they're going to hit the water, I was thinking in my head. He's going to just go and try to land normally and just going to whiplash, just fucking completely destroy the do nothing in, and all the people are just going to slam to the ground and die. I was and Tony's just what have I done? I didn't think this through. Oh God.
But it worked. It definitely worked enough for the
it's plausible. It's plausible enough that it's I actually really liked that once I saw. Okay, he's going to land into the water.
And I liked it.
I was really worried that there's going to be something really dumb where he just lands on the land and it would look real terrible. Obviously completely implausible, but it's that works.
And I like that there was a real sense of practicality to that scene, where obviously there's a lot of CGI components, but that camera's actually moving through the air. You really do see the ground coming up at you. It really there's a good sense of vertigo in that scene.
Although. Also, in that scene, you know what would have been really helpful? If you had, 50 other Iron Man suits that you could just have come and go catch a bunch of people, right?
They're not ready yet. They're not ready yet. He says later on, the crane is, covering them up.
The crane, they're 50 fucking Iron Man suits. They can get out of there.
The line is that there's a bunch of all the rubble is covering it up. He has to wait for the rubble to be cleared. That's the line Jarvis says. The rubble is clear. The crane is done, rubble is cleared.
Bullshit. Okay. The fucking Iron Man shoes would have been fine. They could have come out no fucking problem.
All right. Well, anyway, but then you wouldn't have it for the final confrontation.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I know that the real reason why they don't come out. I'm just saying that it's you could have better justified it some way.
Tony Stark has screenwriter vision.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, so.
It's I could have them come out and save these people, but that would make the last act really, really dull because I would have nothing to pull out. So I'm going to save it for. I'm going to come up with something more clever now.
But what did you think of that scene on the whole, and have the revelation at the end that he's remotely controlling it?
I thought that it was I didn't think it was hello. I thought it was
it was fun. I just thought I really liked how the thing gets just fucking smashed. Mark 42. Falls into pieces.
Yeah, and then I like how first they cut to the standard Iron Man shot of inside his helmet looking at him, and for a second is is that his decapitated head? Did this movie just get really fucked up? And it's you see him slowly bleed out and die, and just the life leaves his eyes from that shot. And then Don Cheadle goes and it's Don Cheadle now. And it's well, fuck, this is my movie now, and I have to go save Pepper.
Yeah,
that would have been awesome.
And then he marries Pepper at the end,
and that's then Iron Man 4 just becomes War Machine.
Anyway,
that's what they should do when Robert Downey Jr. decides he doesn't want to play Tony Stark anymore. Fucking,
I actually do
kill him the most gruesome, disgusting way halfway through a movie, and just hand off the reins to Don Cheadle. And it's fine, here we go, bitch.
I don't think they need to kill Tony Stark, but I actually do think there's a good truth to that. That if they need to retire Iron Man for a little bit, War Machine stepping in and taking over would be as good a solution as any.
Yeah, keeping the Iron Man universe sort of relevant to Marvel.
Right.
Yeah.
You could even talk about, it mentioned that Tony exists in this world still or something. But if he gets, too old to be fighting.
Nailing supermodels in the Bahamas or something. Whatever Tony's doing.
Anyway, so there's that scene. I really like that. I just like his reaction where Rhodes comes into the bathroom on the ship and he's like, did you get it? He's like, I think I got him. And it was kind of nice and you kind of get that sense of that's what Tony Stark would be going through if he's really remotely controlling. It's just he would have no idea. He's well, hope I got him.
Yeah.
But it's it's a nice solution to that issue of do we save Pepper, do we save the plane? And then they go in the big final confrontation, and man, if that's not just a great third act climax.
Yeah.
The number of moving pieces in that scene, it is kind of reminiscent of Avengers in terms of how much stuff is going on, but there is a total clarity of space.
Yeah, definitely. It is a huge it takes place all in one area, but it's there are so many extremist villains, and you have all the Iron Man suits coming in.
Lots of cool designs on them, too.
There's a lot of shit going on in that last huge action scene.
Yep, and I just love how many different suits Tony Stark has to change into.
Yeah.
He's been a good thing he was having anxiety attacks and had to work all night.
Yeah. He would exactly. That's the lesson of this movie. That's what you should have taken away at the end. It's if I hadn't been crazy and built 42 Iron Man suits, I would have been fucked. I need to get on this because these dudes weren't even aliens. There is a fucking pressing alien invasion imminent. I need to get on this shit. I need to build millions of Iron Man suits.
Anyway, but yeah, so lots of good stuff in this last scene. Gwyneth Paltrow, I always call her Gwyneth, it's Pepper Potts. But
yeah.
Gwyneth Paltrow.
You've been switching back and forth between doing actor and character names all back and forth.
The actors in this movie are all really good, and I want to praise them. Gwyneth Paltrow is, as always, really fun, and I think there's some really good moments they do with Pepper here, where first she seems to die, but we know she's not dead.
They're
not going to kill her.
They don't try to sell that at all. It's just like, oh, she's dead. Guess I gotta fight the villain now. You're not dead. Oh.
Well, I mean, realistically, he would have to fight the villain.
Yeah, but I don't know. There was it just didn't feel like they gave that moment any time to decompress at all. That I obviously knew no matter what she wasn't going to die, but it's like I could not suspend my disbelief on that for 1 second. Like as soon as it that happened and it cut, and then he's he turns around and looks kind of angry, and then just goes immediately to fighting without it feeling like he's fighting because he just saw Pepper fall to her death. There's no that emotional weight was not behind it.
I thought Robert Downey Jr. portrayed that, and he has the exchange with Killian where he has. Yeah, he says thing about her being perfect, and he's trying to...
and then, 2 seconds later, there's a dumb joke where the Mark 42 flies in and then breaks apart on landing, and it's well, that's that, or whatever.
I don't think that was a dumb joke. I thought that sets up what happens next.
But it's that comes, 2 minutes after he just saw Pepper fall to her death. Having any joke there completely ruins that there's, no...
Okay,
I just don't feel there's any emotional, there should be a huge emotional weight. Tony should be fucking pissed and be beating the shit out of that dude at that moment. There should be...
Aaron Eckhart in Dark Knight when Gordon dies and he, goes to try to kill the guy.
Yeah, there should be this, big fucking... I thought, the way Robert Downey Jr. acted the scene where he's captured and he sees the hologram of Pepper being injected with the extremist shit and her being in pain, the way he acted there had way more emotional weight than when he saw her ostensibly fall to her burning, crushing death 500 feet below into the giant inferno that he had created because he failed to catch her and it was his fucking fault. That should have so much emotional on it that there being none felt really out of place and kind of clunky to me.
No, I can agree with that. But anyway, so... good final fight there. Mark 42. This is actually something I think this movie does really well is most elements that come into play have a big payoff. There's a lot of foreshadowing payoff and setup payoff that works really well, such as, Mark 42 getting increasingly shittier and shittier and shittier until the only thing he can do with it is
just
blow up Guy Pearce. And then Gwyneth Paltrow gets her revenge too.
Yeah.
So, Pepper Potts. Why am I saying the actors' names? I don't know. I don't do this when I'm writing about movies. I do it when I'm talking about movies. I say the actors' names. I don't know why I do that. Anyway, but yeah, so Pepper obviously regenerates because of the extremist powers.
Yep.
Now,
man, I really thought she was going to die.
Does Pepper ever become a superhero in the comics or anything?
I think she probably does at some point. I'm not a huge Iron Man dude, so it's
I read an interview with her not a couple weeks ago, last week after I saw the movie, and it was a spoiler interview or something, and they talked a little... No, it wasn't. It was I read this before I saw the movie, and I was well, this is kind of weird. Why are they talking about this? It was something about how there's some part of the comics where Pepper becomes a hero also.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I don't know if she gets extremist style powers, but I think at some point she gets into an Iron Man style suit.
Yeah, right. And they were asking her, "Are you going to be in Avengers 2 or something?" And she said, "Anything's possible. We'll see." But it was kind of that coy kind of thing.
Yeah.
So they could be setting something up there. But
I think the implication at the end of the movie is that they fixed her, right?
Yeah, and I did. I don't
think she... I mean, she might end up getting into an Iron Man style suit.
I'm just saying they foreshadow those things. She's in an Iron Man suit at one point, and then she defeats the villain in this movie. Yeah. So, if they wanted to have her doing more action stuff, they could, because those were cool scenes in this movie.
Although, cool, but completely implausible in the sense of, I get that she has powers, how does she know how to fight?
She's been watching Tony fight. Tony taught her. We just didn't see. But
so with all the action movies that I have seen, I can go fucking kick ass I'm fucking Bruce Lee out there because I've seen.
Have you ever tried?
Movie. Yes, I have.
Okay.
I have fought my brother many times.
Oh, that's true.
I've seen far more Bruce Lee movies than my brother. It hasn't worked out for me spectacularly so far.
Okay.
Maybe I should give it another shot.
Let's call your brother over here and do it live on the podcast.
Yeah.
All right. So, in any case, good ending there. Guy Pearce gets blown to fucking smithereens again.
Yeah.
A lot of explosions in this movie. Michael Bay would cry at the number of explosions here. but they're better explosions because they're not shaking.
Yeah.
So anyway, lots of good action, good climax there, and then we get to the final set of scenes, and this, I really like the last couple scenes in this movie, as things are decompressing and we're just getting, everything done with.
Yeah.
And there's some really good stuff just wrapping it up. And it definitely is something I want to talk about. I definitely feel like if, by some horrible occurrence, they could not get Robert Downey Jr. back to do any more, I really like how this would function as a conclusion.
Yeah, this could definitely be if they don't, because, really, at the end of this movie, it feels like he's made the decision that even though, obviously he doesn't, he does come to the conclusion that, it's him that makes him Iron Man, it's not the suit. Obviously, that's sort of his arc throughout the movie is that he feels like, I'm the badass here, it's not the suit that's the badass. Yeah. But also feels like he's kind of just, because he blows up every suit he has, he's sort of made the decision, I'm not going to do this anymore. Even though, he can, he's not going to be a superhero anymore, is what it feels like. He gets the fucking thing taken out of his chest.
Right, and I arc reactor. Yeah. And I see all that, and I've seen that reading online. I read it a little differently, where I feel like, I think he's still going to be Iron Man, but I think the point of blowing up his suits, that scene is showing to Pepper, I'm going to devote...
I'm going to have to spend way more time building suits now, because that scene really bugged me, because I definitely see both those readings, and the reason why I'm going with the reading of he's not going to be Iron Man anymore is because if he is going to be Iron Man anymore, that was the stupidest fucking thing, because... He's been dealing this entire time with this sort of immense stress of knowing that he is this tiny fucking human in this world of there are gods and aliens and we almost got invaded by aliens and I have to fight them and I have this responsibility and Pepper could just get fucking vaporized any second. It's and then he just blows up every single suit. It's at a certain point, dude, you've got some sort of responsibility of being I need to help not stop the alien invasion, so either make the decision of I'm getting out of the superhero game, or go full in and don't blow up every single suit you have already.
I assume he's got other tech somewhere. He's got to have off-system backups, and he's got Star Tower in New York.
He blew up every suit he has. He brought out every suit there. You saw,
at the house that he had at the house. We know he's got Star Tower in New York from Avengers, where he had suits. We know he's probably got other places. He's probably got something at Stark Industries, files to tell him how to rebuild the fucking things.
He can rebuild them, but he has to rebuild them. They're fucking Iron Man suits.
But maybe the point of that is that he doesn't need to build 700 of them.
It worked out well for him in this situation. That's what I'm saying is that it's such an impractical, dumb, realistically dumb thing to do. If you're still going to be a superhero, to blow up every single one of your suits, especially as the sign of I'm not going to work on making suits anymore, I'm going to dedicate time to this relationship, when he has to make 30 suits again because he just blew up 30 fucking suits.
He can get an assistant.
No, he can't. No, he can't. Who's he going to get? Hank Pym? Hank Pym hasn't even had his movie made yet, so no, he can't.
All right. Well,
they don't even have the rights to Reed Richards, so he can't help make them suits either.
Hell, there will
or Charles Xavier. Or Beast.
There will be a Hank Pym movie by the time we get a hypothetical Iron Man 4. Just saying.
That is true. Okay. So Iron Man 4, Tony and Hank Pym in the lab making Iron Man suits. Hank being you are a fucking idiot, Tony. You are fucking... Why did you blow up all of your suits?
Would you watch that movie?
I would, yeah. Okay. Yes. I shouldn't, but I would.
Okay. Anyway, we'll talk about maybe Marvel's future plans later. But no, and I think the thing with the arc reactor, though, I actually really liked that moment, and I think that's an interesting direction for them to go. In the back of my head, the immediate thing I thought is, it very much feels...
Why didn't he do this earlier if he could have done this at any time, apparently?
And actually, that's something I talked about in my in this piece I just put up, and to me, I understand that, and I have a semi-personal connection to that, because... this movie made me think about something in my own life, and that's that
they blew up all of your Iron Man suits. You fucking idiot.
This is not 100% analogous or anything, but it's just something that made me, when I saw that scene and when I saw it a second time, made me think of this. I broke my leg a couple years ago. I have 13 screws, a metal plate, some pins, some metal wiring in my leg. They could take most of that out surgically, and I've known that for the last 5 years, and I have not elected to do that, even though I live in somewhat excruciating pain every day because of that.
But you don't live in imminent death like you do if there were pieces of shrapnel going towards your heart.
Right. No, and I get that there are logical issues with that, but I do think there is an element there of just emotional. I think the reason sometimes I know why I keep on to that is I kind of keep it as a reminder of some of the things that led to me breaking my leg the way I did. And it's something that I don't feel I can get rid of because of certain personal and psychological issues that I feel like that's a part of me. And I can see Tony thinking that because that is a representation mechanically of, having a mechanical heart, that direct connection to his tech. Is that what makes him Iron Man? Well, that's not what makes him Iron Man. And obviously he can get it out and then he can find other ways to power his suits. He doesn't need an arc reactor in his chest to make that work.
He could just put one on top of his chest, realistically. He obviously doesn't literally need it.
And so I felt like emotionally this is the moment he would do it, and I think Tony Stark is stubborn and fucked up enough not to have done it before.
I can see that, but I don't think the movie necessarily earns that. Like, I think it's because of your personal experience with that you can, like, reach into it and pull that out, but I don't think, like, the movie develops that idea enough internally for, like, me to really buy it as, like...
And I can agree with that. And it's just, that's the thing about movies.
And it's also that, like, it seemed very clear in the other movies that he can't do that. That, like, that procedure would kill him. That's, like...
But it seemed like he was, Well, I don't know. We didn't go into the full details of the surgery and stuff, but we saw that they were doing it in such a way where it got sucked up by the arc reactor.
But no, they just pulled it out and then it got sucked up by the arc. Like, it didn't seem like the arc reactor had any, like, important thing to it that was, like, part of that surgery.
Okay.
If that was the case again, he could have done it at any time. Like,
that's true.
Like, there was a definite implication in all Iron Man mythos that he just can't just take it out.
Yeah.
So it kind of bugged me there.
Okay. But I like that he took it out. I like that they did that. And I think it ends in such a way where I would be, if they do more, I'd be excited because he's kind of my favorite superhero at this point. And I think they could make many more great movies. I'd love to see Shane Black stick with it if they do more. He obviously really gets this universe. And, I would like to see more, but at the same time, and this is something I want to talk about, I think it is very, very tough, as we have seen, to do anything even remotely approaching a good conclusion in a superhero trilogy.
Yeah.
And I think, to me, and I know you don't think as strong as this, but for me, they really stuck the landing here. And I really like this.
I mean, I think they're, like, a lot of the stuff thematically with Tony himself, I think they really nailed. But the stuff with the villain, like, I think the character stuff they nailed, but I don't think the movie they necessarily nailed.
Okay.
Like for me to be like, this is a great conclusion to the trilogy. Because another aspect of the villain that I was kind of disappointed about, that like them switching into not being the Mandarin, was that there was this heavy implication of the Mandarin being somehow tied into Tony's origins because he's the leader of that, like, the Ten Rings terrorist organization and all that shit.
They never said 10 rings here.
But I mean, the logo of the 10 rings, the Mandarin has 10 rings. It's the Mandarin. Like, there was that expectation sort of going into it of, like, because that was what the reference was in Iron Man 1, was to the Mandarin. And then also, it was pretty, it was clear that he was dealing with stuff in the Middle East, which is, that's where Tony originally got hit by shrapnel and had to, like, with all the shit. So I thought, like, I had the sort of expectation of it being able to, like, nicely cap the trilogy of sort of, like, going back to that moment for Tony with the villain, and I thought that's what they were going to do that would be interesting with the villain, of, like, it not just being the Joker or whatever, is that there's, like, tie it into Tony a little more personally somehow with the Mandarin. It's kind of what I was hoping.
I don't know, that would have been an interesting thing to do, and I think that would have been an interesting direction to explore. I happen to like this direction too, but I agree that's definitely an interesting idea.
Yeah. It's too bad. It's too bad they fucked their villain.
Oh well. I'm fine with it. But Sean just hates everything. You're wrong.
I don't hate everything. That is not true. I really like Iron Man 1. I love Iron Man 1. Iron Man 1 is a fucking fantastic movie. So you're wrong. I love things. I like things.
All right.
I really like Iron Man 3. I'm not trying to say it's a bad movie by any stretch of the imagination. I just think, like...
Yeah, well, let's talk about
that point. It's only because it's a really good movie that I'm so disappointed about that villain thing. That's like, because that's so... It made me, like, appreciate, like, not necessarily really enjoy the last act of the movie as much as I was like, this is a really impressive last act of a movie. It was like, because, like, it was so disappointing and sort of, like, so took me out of the movie when it was like, oh, the Mandarin's not the villain, all that buildup was false. That it's like, I couldn't get myself invested into the movie like I was before that had happened, and it was, like, really annoying to me.
I would be interested to talk to you on the podcast a little bit more about this movie if you ever wind up seeing it again, which I'm sure you will one day.
Yeah, probably. Probably not in the theater, but...
Right. But if you want to watch it a second time, I think, for me, a lot of these things were ironed out, and I would just be interested to see if you like it more or less watching it again and seeing how it built. Because it definitely, to me, knowing what's coming, the movie does not build up to the Mandarin being the villain. It very clearly, the stuff they are investing in is Guy Pearce and the other characters. And the Mandarin is very much shown as a red herring, and there's foreshadowing to it, and it.
Damn, I might just make it even more disappointing because then it's like that aspect of the movie I already really enjoyed is. I mean, because that's
but I'm saying either way, I'd be interested to hear your opinion on that. But let's talk about other stuff that's good about the movie. Though we talked about the story and stuff. I mean, what else do we want to cover here? Do we want to talk about any of the other? We kind of talked about the performances as we were going, but
I mean, they're all really good.
Yeah, I liked. I think we talked about Guy Pearce and all these other characters. The only other sort of major new figure in here was the Rebecca Hall character, and that's basically just an expository role.
Yeah, she didn't feel.
No, she's not a spectacular character or anything, but I thought she did good with a part that is rather thankless.
Yeah.
Because that's something that I think can often drag down movies, and she was good in that. She had some good chemistry with Robert Downey Jr. in their first scene, some good stuff there.
Although, like, her character just really felt kind of weird to me, because they had the whole thing where it's like, you think she's still this sort of, like, sweet biologist lady, and it's like, no, she's actually a villain. No, she's still kind of just, like, this sweet, sentimental biologist lady. It's just, like, that character sort of felt like it was just being yanked around by the plot, and it's like, we don't have any time to develop this character, we just need her to do this. No, we need her to do that now! You need to be a villain. No, you need to be sympathetic.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And now you need to get shot because we don't know what to do with you in the last act of the movie.
Well, like I said, thankless part. But, I really like all the performances in this. From a technical standpoint, we talked about the action, we talked about the effects. I really liked the music in this movie.
Yeah, the music was really good.
Yeah, and this is the third composer in 3 Iron Man films. This is Brian Tyler. Ramin Djawadi did the first Iron Man film, and I really liked the score to that. And that's one of the reasons why I think that's, in many ways, still kind of the pinnacle of Iron Man, because they, at least in his standalone films, I think that score had some techno aspects to it. It had a lot of rock guitar, fit really well.
Yeah,
and and then the score to Iron Man 2 is kind of dreadful. It's John Debney, and it's just blank. It's there. There's some strings. Yeah. It's nothing. And in this movie, Brian Tyler did not use any of the Ramin Djawadi material, which is a little disappointing, but because it would have been nice to hear some of it again. But the stuff he put in place of that, he had actual themes developed and stuff, and they all sounded really good to me. I really liked the music, and particularly the composition he had for the end credits, which are fucking awesome. I love those credits. It's a lot of fun, and I just thought, Marvel has actually, that's the one area Marvel Studios has had trouble with, I think, is the music in their movies, because they're not
it doesn't. None of the heroes have, this, really, sort of, identifiable, music to them.
The closest they've come is Captain America and the Avengers had Alan Silvestri, and he wrote good themes for both of those.
Yeah. But even then, they're not,
they're not John Williams themes.
Yeah, exactly. They're not, incredibly memorable.
Yeah.
And it was one of the things I was actually, noticed while I was watching the credits of, I like this music, but it's, I'm really sad that I can't identify this as Iron Man music the way I could, watching the before this, I had just the Man of Steel trailer. That's the really fucking awesome one that has the Hans Zimmer I have some of the Hans Zimmer Man of Steel score there, and it's I'd close my eyes for a second while watching the trailer, just listening to that music and being like, "This is fucking Superman music."
Right.
I was so fucking impressed by it is not the John Williams score, but this immediately feels like Superman music to me.
Absolutely. But I do think overall, I think Brian Tyler's music here is a step in the right direction. If they do more Iron Man, I think they should keep him on board. Consistency is good in music for movies. And I do wonder if Ramin Djawadi had stayed on. The reason he has not done the other Iron Man movies is he went off and he's the composer for Game of Thrones, obviously a time-consuming gig.
Yeah.
But he's a very good composer over on Game of Thrones, and I've listened to what he's done on 3 years with that show, and it's great. And I feel like if he had been able to stick around and do all 3 Iron Man movies, I think we probably would be at a point where we would have a really good iconic Iron Man score. Mm-hmm. But sadly, that's just not what happened.
Yeah.
But
it's also just kind of a thing with Marvel characters in general of they don't have sort of like the DC characters are so deliberately iconic of being Superman, Batman that they sort of fit more grandiose sort of hyperbolic musical themes in a way that Marvel characters are a lot more low key, that they don't, or literally low key, that they don't quite fit that.
It's a terrible joke, but it was kind of awesome.
There's so much more to that joke, but I can't even tell you why there's so much more to that joke.
All right, so what else do you want to talk about with Iron Man 3? Is there anything else left to cover?
I don't know. I feel like I was going to make another comment, but now I can't remember what it was.
Okay.
It's probably something incredibly profound that would have just completely shattered everybody's understanding of this movie.
Yeah, I think I would have some more things to say, but I said most of that in the piece I published yesterday, so you can go read that. We got this covered. That's sort of more my personal thematic reading of some of that stuff. Didn't get into talk about everything I thought interesting thematically about it, because I think there's a lot to this movie, but definitely I think that's just what I would reiterate about this, is that I feel like this is a really well-constructed movie. I think it's very tight. I think compared to some of the other Marvel movies, I think this one is... And I love all the Marvel movies, except for Incredible Hulk, which is not bad by any means, but it's it's kind of just there.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the scores to Marvel movies.
Yeah.
It's just kind of there.
But, I think this one, I really like it. I think it's a really nice step in the right... it's a really nice step forward for Marvel, and I feel like it couldn't kick off Phase 2 any better for me.
It definitely, in the way it really smartly handles taking place after the Avengers and dealing with stuff from the Avengers and incorporating that very strongly into the characters' development and making it a big part of the movie, but not making it such an overbearing we are setting up every other movie in this movie sort of thing. It's this is still self-contained, but it feels very natural in that universe, even a post-Avengers. Everything's still fucked kind of way. Yeah, you kick open that fucking door with Avengers of there are gods, there are aliens. Iron Man is neither of those things, and making that still feel natural. And so it's the grand Marvel cinematic experiment is fucking still going full steam ahead, and that is really encouraging.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's what I wanted to see, and we were talking about this before the podcast, but I do think occasionally in Phase 1, some of the stuff they would do, Iron Man 2 is a perfect example.
Yeah.
There's too much.
Being a little bit overbearing,
the stuff from the
SHIELD stuff.
Yeah, and I think Thor encroached on that territory a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think... it's really nice to see they don't need to do that anymore. I think there's maybe when we get into Guardians of the Galaxy that will probably more directly set up some Avengers 2 stuff. But overall, we know where our characters are, and I would like to see Thor 2 just be a Thor movie, Captain America 2 really just focus on Cap and his issues and see what's going on there. And I think
the stuff around this movie seems like that's going to be the case.
Yeah.
Particularly, we don't know a huge amount about Captain America 2 yet, but the Thor 2 stuff, it doesn't look like that's going to be super tied into other Marvel mythology.
It looks like most of it won't even happen on Earth, so there won't be any chance to. So I'm really interested in it. And let's talk about that, because that's as good a transition as any. The Thor 2 trailer came out last week.
Yeah.
Played in front of Iron Man, so everyone's seen it. Really damn good trailer, I think, for a teaser. Definitely. Very encouraging.
Yep.
And it looks like they're going in some really interesting directions. And we're going to have... And it also looks like it is following up on what happened with Avengers in that Loki's there.
Yeah, it looks like a huge part of that movie is going to be dealing with Thor and Loki and their relationship, which is a smart move, because that is sort of, I feel the linchpin of all of the Thor stuff to me, even in the comic books, that the relationship between, even just in the mythology, the relationship between those two characters is so interesting and so huge. It's I'm glad that Tom Hiddleston is fucking coming back, because he's so good as Loki. I mean,
he's the best villain in the Marvel Cinematic Universe so far, by far.
Without a doubt.
And it was, obviously there was...
He should just be the villain in all of them from now on, until they figure this situation out. It's just fuck it, Loki, you're fighting Iron Man, you're fighting Hulk this week, it's now you're fighting Captain America. Tom Hiddleston is going to be really busy, but really fucking rich.
Oh, yeah. God, yeah, he'd make just shit tons of money.
Yeah.
He'd be making Robert Downey Jr. money almost.
Yeah.
If he did enough movies. Mm-hmm. He'd have to make up for it with quantity rather than just quality, but yeah. I'm sure he'd be good in all of them. Mm-hmm. But I'm really excited to see that. As you noted when we saw that trailer for the first time, he's entered his Hannibal Lecter phase.
Yeah.
And so that should be fun. And then, so I think Thor 2 looks like it's in good hands. We did not see any in that trailer of Christopher Eccleston, the Ninth Doctor.
Yeah.
Who will be playing.
There might have been a shot, because I don't know how much...
He's in makeup.
Yeah, how much of, makeup he's in, how heavy it is, that, because there was a shot of a character, kind of from behind this, that might be Malekith. I'm not entirely sure.
And I know there are two kind of villains. There's also, I cannot say the actor's name. It's Mr. Echo from Lost. He has a really long African heritage name.
Yeah.
And he's the other kind of main villain in this. So, there's such a brief shot. I don't know who in the film it is. But that movie's got a good cast. Like the work, getting back to the Natalie Portman stuff from the first movie. So, should be good.
You'll think that Christopher Eccleston is the villain all throughout the movie, then halfway through, it's Natalie Portman! She's the real mastermind, and we never even knew! They're just gonna do this for all the movies now. It's gonna suck.
Do you want to share with the audience what you hope happens at the end of Thor 2?
Yeah, okay, yeah. My there's no way they're doing this. But what they should do, because I think this is such a good fucking idea, is that it's like the movie is whatever. Like Natalie Portman comes up that it's like Thor has to save Earth because Malekith is going to destroy Earth for whatever reason, and to stop Malekith, he needs to get Loki to help him. And so it's like he and Loki are sort of like working together. It's like he thinks his relationship with Loki is sort of like working out. This thing with like Natalie Portman's going okay, and they have like the big last battle where Thor and Loki are fighting Malekith together. Like Natalie Portman's like somewhere in Asgard, like in her own room, and it's like he thinks everything's going good, and like halfway through the battle, Loki just sort of like disappears. Like Thor finishes off Malekith, and he's like, that damn Loki, like he like used this opportunity in the middle of battle to escape. We're going to have to find him again. But what really happened, and you don't even know this at the end of this movie. Because like then it's like ends with like Thor goes back and he reunites with Natalie Portman. It's like, yay, everything's okay. But what actually happened, and this doesn't get revealed until the next Avengers movie, the next Thor movie, is that Loki killed Natalie Portman and took her place using his shape-shifting powers because he's the god of mischief, just to fuck with Thor. Because that's how pissed off Loki is and how off the deep end he's gone. And it's like and then it's like he reveals that in another movie, and it's just like just completely destroys Thor, just like psychologically.
And we can give the demon in a bottle story to Thor.
He goes to Earth, becomes an alcoholic. Yeah, the whole 9 yards.
And then Avengers 3 they do an intervention for Thor.
Yeah.
Which is really tough because he's a god.
Yeah. God, that'd be so good. Just like, I'm just in my head, that reveal in another movie of like that's what actually happened would be so insane. God, it'd be so great.
It'd be great. All right, so that's Iron Man 3. Anything else we want to say before we sign off and talk about Doctor Who?
Did you want to talk a little bit about like the other Marvel stuff, like sort of like I don't know, like where they're going ahead, I guess, like with like the other projects.
Yeah.
Just kind of like want to
let's talk
take
about
a stock of what is going on with Marvel right now.
Let's talk about that.
It's like a good time.
Let's talk about that. But first, we forgot to talk about one thing in Iron Man 3: the post-credits tag. Did you like it?
Yeah, I liked it. There's just like a fun little scene of just like Tony talking to a Bruce Banner.
Yeah,
it's like yeah.
It's also a Shane Black kind of thing to do, where in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, Robert Downey Jr.'s character also has narration at the beginning and end, and then there's a framing device. And in that movie, you find out he's this all happened, but he's pitching that story as a movie. And then in this movie, he's telling his story to Bruce Banner, who's fallen asleep on the couch. I really liked this tag. I really liked seeing it because that was one of my absolute favorite parts of the Avengers was their friendship.
Yeah,
and just I feel like that's exactly on a day-to-day basis what their friendship would be like. Tony Stark just steamrolling Bruce Banner, and Bruce Banner taking it because if he gets angry, he'll become a Hulk.
Yeah, like I thought it was really fun, but it was also just kind of because I've loved the style of the other like post-credit scenes in the Marvel movies of having them set up the other movies that are going on in like really cool little tiny like 10-second ways of like, bitch, I'm Nick Fury. Let's talk about the Avengers Initiative. Kind of like those scenes are so cool. That's like this scene is a lot of fun, but I was like expecting this like, man, what is it going to be? Like, what are they going to show? Like, there's going to be like some really cool hint of like, this is what's going on, motherfucker. Mandarin really is the villain, motherfucker. And it's like, yeah. It's like, no. It's like a little... Like, I think that scene would have worked for me a lot better if it had been at the end of like the first section of credits before they went into the really boring like black screen, white text sort of thing. Of like, because waiting all the way through those credits to have like a 30-second fun little scene between Tony and Bruce was like, yeah, that's kind of cool. I didn't necessarily need to sit here for 5 minutes to... Okay. I could have just watched that on YouTube.
Okay. I liked it. What was I going to say? Like, so what you would have wanted out of this, for say, is that, like, Tony goes back to the ruins of his house, and Nick Fury is standing where he first stood, like, but when he was in the house, but now he's standing on the ruins, and he's like, Mr. Stark, and he, like, turns around, and he's like, I've got to tell you about the Guardians of the Galaxy initiative. And then we cut to the end.
Yeah.
Something like that. Set up phase 2.
But he's wearing 10 rings, so you know that Nick Fury really is actually the Mandarin the whole time.
That'd be great if Nick Fury just went evil and they could have Samuel L. Jackson as the villain. Fuck, go for it. That'd be weird.
Yeah, but God, now I'm just thinking about this. Like, we'll never have Mandarin as a villain in the movie.
Is that all that big a loss?
I like the Mandarin okay. Like, and I like the direction they're going in. It's just like we'll never.
Never say never. 50 years from now, in like the third Iron Man reboot,
but it won't be the same. Like, that's just God. because it's just, obviously, like, Mandarin is not a huge monumental character that, like, everyone knows about, but it's sort of like if, like, in a Batman movie, you're, like, going into it and thinking it's like, Riddler's going to be the villain of this movie, and this is going to be so fucking cool. And then halfway through, you find out, oh no, it's some, like, asshole businessman dude who's just, like, not a character I give a shit about, who's not from anything. It's just like, oh, okay. I really like the Riddler. I like what you're, like, seemed like what you're going to do with him. But you're not. You're just, like, turning him into this dumb, useless character that's just a throwaway joke. Well, not a throwaway joke. That's unfair, but a joke.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, so I think we've said our piece on Iron Man 3. But yeah, you want to talk about some of the other Marvel projects. We touched on Thor 2. Phase 2 will conclude then with, in 2014, Captain America, The Winter Soldier, and Guardians of the Galaxy. And I'm excited for all three of these projects that are coming up.
Although, that, like, reminds me of a weird thing, because we've been calling it Thor 2, but it's really called Thor the Dark World.
Yeah.
Isn't it really? Because, like, I didn't think about it until I was watching Iron Man 3, where I was like, I'm watching Iron Man 3.
Right.
Why did they not follow that? Like, they could still use subtitles, but why isn't it called Thor 2?
I totally
Iron Man
agree.
movies have, like, their numbers. It's like...
I love movies that just have numbers because now I can put on my shelf Iron Man 1, Iron Man 2, Iron Man 3.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah, no, I wish they were doing numbers because it pisses me off. Because for one, Thor the Dark World is a terrible title. It just sounds like a PSP game you would go buy. And I think Captain America, The Winter Soldier is slightly better, but if it were Captain America 2, The Winter Soldier, it'd be cool.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't have a number, it just sounds like, it's okay.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I'm just always going to refer to them as Thor 2 and Captain America 2 because I don't give a shit, but it's like, it's just like, and it's particularly annoying because the Iron Man movies are numbered.
Right.
So it's like, you guys just, like, established this already, that's how you were doing it, and now you fucked it up.
Yeah. So yeah, The Winter Soldier sounds like they're doing the story from the comics where Bucky comes back.
Yeah. Oh, big shock. Bucky's not dead.
Yeah. Anyway, so
there's a really cool piece of concept art where there's the Winter Soldier catching Captain America's shield. It's just concept art, but it's like that looked really cool. Yeah. And then also the Falcon's going to be in it, and I wasn't expecting that.
Anthony Mackie's playing him, right?
Yeah.
Anthony Mackie's a really good actor, and I'm excited to see that.
Fuck, that's what it's going to like. The War Machine Falcon team up movie. That's what it should be. That's what it should be.
All right, we'll do that. And that movie will also have Scarlett Johansson in it in a big capacity. She'll be Black Widow will be sort of in that movie for this phase, and I think that's a good fit.
That's a really smart choice because obviously, like Black Widow is not a character that like necessarily has enough stuff around her to like I don't think like a ton of people would go see a Black Widow movie.
Right, and she'd also be
not yet.
And she'd be, she was fine in Iron Man 2, that fit, but there's not a whole lot she can do as Iron Man's sidekick.
Yeah, she does, like, being in sort of the espionage, like, Captain America has powers, but he's not, like, his, like, most useful power is that his shield bounces, really, so.
Yeah. And so definitely they can work together very effectively. And they had some really nice scenes together in Avengers.
Yeah.
Just they worked effectively in that part where they're sort of the ground team. Mm-hmm. So I'm interested in seeing more of that.
Yeah, and then obviously there's a huge amount of stuff that Captain America needs to go through because, they worked with some of the stuff of him, like, kind of dealing with being in the modern times in Avengers, but, like, obviously that was the Avengers. They didn't have a huge amount of time to sort of sit down and be like, Cap, man, your situation is really fucked.
Yeah. And I'll say one thing about this Captain America movie. This is something that I think I'm a little worried about with some of the Phase 2 films. Is so far, except for Incredible Hulk, which was really just a kind of, again, the director was, I think, the guy Louis Leterrier, who's like, he did the Transporter movies with Jason Statham. He's not an auteur by any means or anything. And with all the other Marvel movies, I think they've found really interesting directors to do really interesting work that is very much their work. Thor is very much a Kenneth Branagh film, and Captain America really is Joe Johnston engaging in his own pulp interests.
Yeah.
And I really like that. And obviously Iron Man 3 is a Shane Black movie. Thor 2 is going to be directed by Alan Taylor. He's a first-time film director, but he was the series lead director on Game of Thrones seasons 1 and 2. And he did very good work there, but it's always tough to tell in TV directing because TV is not a director's medium, it's very much a writer's medium.
Yeah.
And it's very different in that way. Now, some of my concerns were totally assuaged by that Thor trailer because it looks visually really interesting, and it looks like Alan Taylor's episodes of Game of Thrones. I mean, as far as I know, they're shooting in some of the same locations because he knew those locations, and it's like, fuck it, I'll just go shoot there. And so that works. But it's definitely something where I wonder how much he's going to be able to do that's different, and I'm interested in seeing that. And then for Captain America 2, it's Anthony and Joe Russo, who are comedy directors who have done like a lot of TV comedy pilots, and their only movie is You, Me, and Dupree with Owen Wilson.
Huh.
So I have no idea how that's going to work.
Yeah,
that worries me a
weird.
little bit, because I'm kind of sad they didn't get Joe Johnston back for Captain America 2, because I loved what he did with Captain America 1. As you all know, I really love that movie.
Yeah.
And I understand Joe Johnston's getting up there in years, and maybe he didn't want to do another giant blockbuster. But, I assume Marvel has been so savvy so far, I assume they have picked these directors because they saw something in them that we just don't know about yet, especially with the Russo brothers. They probably had to, as far as I know, they did a demo reel and stuff, so, we'll see. There's definitely been, Jon Favreau would not have been the intuitive choice for Iron Man, the day he was announced as the director, so we'll see. He certainly had not done an action movie yet.
Yep.
So, but I mentioned that, and then, but for Guardians of the Galaxy, the director is James Gunn, who is kind of an indie film director, and so that's definitely an interesting one, an interesting choice. But are you excited for Guardians of the Galaxy?
I mean, yeah, but...
Or curious.
I'm excited as I am for, like, any of these movies, but it's like, Guardians of the Galaxy, I think, is just, like, it's such a weird choice, because it's like, going into it, I was like, I think I've heard of Guardians of the Galaxy before, but it's like, that is not, like, a big Marvel property or anything. Like, it's a really small series from, like, the Silver Age, I think, that then, like, had, like, a really small run, and I think they brought it back in, like, 2008 or something like that, which is sort of, like, that's past where I've kept up with Marvel Comics, like, to really, like, by reading a lot of them, because that's when they fucked Spider-Man, so I was like, I'm out of this, but...
Yeah. So, but I think the main character in that movie is going to be played by Chris Pratt, who's on Parks and Recreation, and then he was also in Zero Dark 30 as one of the guys on the team that killed Bin Laden. He's not the guy who says her confidence. He's the guy who asks the question and sets it up. So that scene that's in every fucking trailer.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm interested in seeing Chris Pratt in a Marvel movie. That sounds fun. And I saw an interesting interview with James Gunn recently who assured fans Rocket Raccoon will be the heart and soul of the movie. I think that's so crazy that they're doing Guardians of the Galaxy and they're making Rocket Raccoon one of the main characters. They're really committing to it.
If you have a character called Rocket Raccoon, how would you go about not making him one of the main characters?
I mean, this is the biggest reason I hope Robert Downey Jr. keeps doing Marvel movies so he can interact with Rocket Raccoon in Iron Man 2. Or Thor. Avengers.
Yeah, in Iron Man 2, it's like the Iron Man 2 director's cut. It's like Jon Favreau always wanted Rocket Raccoon in that movie, and it's like, but Guardians of the Galaxy wasn't established yet, so you couldn't do it, and that's why Iron Man 2 is kind of disappointing. It's like, when you get that director's cut, it's like, it all makes sense!
Alright, so anyway.
That's actually what he was going to have Rocket Raccoon play the role of Black Widow, like, being this, like, secretary that's, like, kind of has the hots for, like, but they couldn't get Rocket Raccoon, so they're like, well, we're going to use Black Widow in the Avengers, so let's introduce her in this. It's like, I guess, it doesn't really fit the role that I wrote for, but
now
I guess we'll just plug her in there.
Now I'm imagining that awesome scene in Iron Man 2 where Black Widow kicks ass, but it's Rocket Raccoon doing it.
Yeah. And like really tight, like skin tight black, like cat suit. Yeah.
Raccoon suit. Anyway, so yeah, so those are their Phase 2 movies, and do you want to go on beyond that?
Yeah,
the next May 2015 is the Avengers 2, which written and directed by Joss Whedon. We know that's going to be great, right? Yeah.
Unless Joss Whedon just says fuck it and he wants to make the movie horrible.
Yeah.
But like with Avengers 2, I don't think we've talked about this on the podcast before. Interesting little detail came out of that. Apparently, they're going to have Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, who, if you don't know, they're X-Men characters they're like the twin son and daughter of Magneto. Then they're going to be in Avengers 2, and that's fucking crazy.
Okay, to be fair, Joss Whedon, the full interview says they're in his current draft. They may get cut. Okay. He doesn't know. Okay. He's like, yeah, it's something he would like to do, but we're a long ways off.
Yeah, but
it's an interesting
that
idea.
Would be fucking crazy.
Yeah,
because obviously Marvel does not have the rights to the X-Men. And apparently I guess ostensibly they would have the rights to Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. I don't know. I don't know how the details of all that work out. Because now in retrospect, it does seem really fucking weird that those characters are not in any of the X-Men movies.
Yeah.
Because
I'm sure when those contracts were drawn up, Fox bought it character by character and they picked the characters. They didn't just get every single character who's ever appeared under the X-Men banner.
Yeah.
Although they've clearly got most of them.
Scarlet Witch is a really, really, really important, like, big character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would assume if that was the deal, you would get Scarlet Witch, right?
Yeah, you'd want her because one of the most I mean, I guess he probably wouldn't. This would be a weird story to try to adapt into a movie, but one of the biggest modern X-Men stories is House of M that revolves entirely around Scarlet Witch's reality-altering powers, so... Yeah.
Interesting.
But yeah, it's like, if they have fucking Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver in Avengers 2, that would be insane.
Yeah.
That would be fucking insane.
It sounds like there's going to be, a lot of characters in it, because they'll have the main 4 we've seen so far, plus, Nick Fury, Black Widow, Hawkeye, as expected, and then all the Guardians of the Galaxy are a team in and of themselves. So, and I don't know exactly how they're going to play into Avengers 2. I suspect they will not be main characters.
Probably not.
Yeah. Because I think Joss Whedon probably wants to approach Avengers 2 as a sequel to the movie he made, which was about those characters, and probably just with some new blood in it here and there. Which I think is probably the right path. You don't want to make Avengers 2 have 12 dozen people.
Yeah, suddenly throwing on the 6 or so characters from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
And then trying to introduce 2 entirely new characters in Avengers 2. It's just I
wonder what they're going to call the Avengers 2.
Hopefully it's just the Avengers 2.
Wouldn't it be great if just the Iron Man series and Avengers series got to have numbers?
Yeah. All the other ones just kept on going with the subtitles.
Yeah. But anyway, Phase 3 will kick off right after Avengers 2 in fall of 2015, with Ant-Man, which is Edgar Wright's film. And Edgar Wright has been, who you would know as the director of Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, Scott Pilgrim, and the upcoming The World's End. And he's been trying to get this movie made long before the Marvel Cinematic Universe was around.
I've been hearing about this movie forever.
Yeah, and I'm really excited for it.
Yeah, another movie I am really curious about because... Ant-Man is pretty fucking lame. I'm going to be totally honest here, even in the scope of comic books. Ant-Man is so lame, he's had 5 or 6 different superhero identities at this point. And he very quickly went from being Ant-Man to being Giant Man. Which I always love that just because it's Giant Ant-Man. I've always loved that, but... it makes sense because you take the power from getting really small and then change that to being really big. Seems like that wouldn't be that hard to do. But it's but they're straight up just calling it Ant-Man. It's not Giant Man. It's not Yellow Jacket. It's fucking Ant-Man.
No, and I don't know if you've seen any of the footage. I mean, he shot a demo reel for this years ago, and they showed it at Comic-Con last year, and I've seen some clips from it. And he's doing Ant-Man. He gets small, he runs through a door.
I've seen the, I don't know if it's actually a poster, whatever it was, but there was an official photo involving around the Ant-Man movie that had the Ant-Man helmet. That is the Ant-Man helmet that he made to talk to ants. So it's fucking Ant-Man.
Right. So Edgar Wright, all I can consider is Edgar Wright is a really great writer and director, and he must have cracked it somehow, how he wants to do this on film.
And to be honestly fair, the original Ant-Man comic... the first issue that they didn't know they were going to make this into a character, but it sold really well, is actually a really fucking good comic. It's he shrinks really small, gets into an anthill. It's really interesting and really good. So if they sort of just really sort of closely adapt that story in some way, I think it could really work. But it's but I don't know how well it's going to work for the larger movie-going audience, I guess, because it's Ant-Man.
Well, Marvel is definitely entering riskier territory.
Yeah.
Guardians of the Galaxy is a gamble, and Ant-Man is definitely a gamble. But I assume I think they're getting so much money from their other movies.
Yeah.
At this point, as we are speaking, Iron Man 3 has already grossed close to $700 million worldwide. If Ant-Man doesn't gross that much, it's okay. They'll be fine.
Yeah.
I think that's where they're at. We can make some stuff that's a little riskier.
Yeah,
and
because they've made or they no longer have the rights to all of their big material. Other than Daredevil, they have now have the rights to.
That's Ghost Rider. They've got Ghost Rider again.
Yeah, let's make that Ghost Rider movie. And then now they got Punisher. It's a little bit larger profile, but he also would not fit in the larger Marvel universe at all. Daredevil already would be kind of a harder fit because they haven't done any of those sort of street level, I'm just dealing with sort of thugs kind of heroes. Mm-hmm. So past Avengers 2 is going to be really fascinating seeing how they tackle like Black Panther. They're looking to do Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
Which that's a movie I'm really excited to see if they ever make a Doctor Strange movie. Because Doctor Strange is fucking crazy. The original Steve Ditko Doctor Strange comics are super psychedelic, just crazy images.
Yeah. And I think things are going to change starting with Phase 3, because I think, Robert Downey Jr. is not going to be around forever. I fully suspect with how much Iron Man 3 has made, he will at least be there for Avengers 2, and I assume he will have one more movie in Phase 3.
Maybe.
But probably not more than that.
I think I'm pretty he's almost definitely going to be back for Avengers 2. But like past that point, I would not take bets on there being another Iron Man movie.
Yeah, and I am kind of at that point too. But if the only thing to say is that Iron Man 3 is on par with Avengers in terms of how big it's doing worldwide, and so that's something they will be able to pay him whatever he wants. So, and I don't know how much.
At a certain point, you don't know how much of that is, like Robert Downey Jr. does not need that much more money. Like,
I'm just saying, and I don't know if that's if there's a contract negotiating going on. We'll see, but I assume it'll be in Avengers 2, but that's not going to be an ongoing part of the Marvel Universe forever. I wouldn't necessarily expect Joss Whedon to do Avengers 3 and 4 and 5.
Yeah.
I think he probably wants to do other stuff, and I think he's doing 2 because I think he was on contract to do 2.
And then, reading interviews from him, it sounds like he had a lot of ideas of what he wanted to do in 2, so it's like he really wants to do it.
Right, and if he has those ideas and he wants to do 3, they will obviously let him.
Yeah.
But, we don't even know if the phases after that point will be strictly revolving around an Avengers film, how that's exactly going to work.
Yeah, because at some point you have to figure, like with Robert Downey Jr., you don't know how long you're going to be able to keep on making Captain America and Thor movies either.
Right. So it'll be really interesting to see where this goes, but I think so far, this is what I felt watching Iron Man 3, is everyone else needs to just give up and stop trying. Marvel gets superhero movies in ways nobody else does right now.
Yeah.
And I'll make an exception for Warner Brothers because the Man of Steel looks really good.
Yeah, but, I'm super excited for Man of Steel.
Right. And they've done some very good stuff with Batman, but, they also did not do a superhero version of Batman.
Yeah, they did not try to make a comic book movie at all with those Batman movies. A little bit Batman Begins, but a little bit.
Yeah.
Dark Knight, fucking not at all. And you could take Batman and the Joker completely out of Dark Knight and it would be totally fine.
Yeah.
He's just does not need to be Batman at all.
And obviously Dark Knight Rises quotes some comic book panels, and then that's as far as we go with that. But, and that's not a criticism, that's just, those are different kinds of movies.
Are.
But when it comes to actual movies that are, comic book movies, I think Jon Favreau cracked it when he made Iron Man 1, how you do those and make them complex and engaging to audiences while still being fun and funny and exciting. And then everyone else has built off that and done great work, and I think Marvel's just full steam ahead. They're doing great work.
Yeah.
And it's just, if you like these characters and if you like superheroes, it's such a fun time to be a fan because Marvel has a steady output where you will get something really damn good every couple months.
Yeah. But it also just kind of you really wish Warner Brothers would get it shit in gear and figure out, because they've got DC has a bunch of really awesome characters that I'd also love to see them be able to work through the pipeline of the A-list characters to then get to some the other B-list, C-list characters that I want to really see be in movies and get fleshed out in interesting ways.
Yeah.
Like the Speedy movie, goddammit.
Well, what DC needs, I think we've talked about this before, is if Warner wants DC to be a thing, they need to spin off, make a separate division, and put someone like Kevin Feige of Marvel in charge. Because Kevin Feige, the producer at Marvel, understands the Marvel properties. He's a Marvel guy.
Yeah.
And he hires people because he knows they understand it. And so it's not a studio executive who's never read a comic book making these movies. It's people who are passionate about it, and there's nobody at Warner Brothers right now who knows that stuff. Mm-hmm. And that serves them okay with Batman and Superman, but getting any deeper than that, we know what happened to Green Lantern.
Yeah.
And I think they need someone like that, and they need to find filmmakers like Jon Favreau and Joss Whedon and Shane Black who love this material and are still great filmmakers.
Yeah.
And, we'll see. It looks like Man of Steel is going to be great, and if Man of Steel really is great, and that's a good first step for them, so be it, Well, hopefully they can do more with that. But I also don't know if that's exactly sustainable for all their different properties.
Yeah, most DC's characters are hard to do.
Yeah, and I know they want to make Christopher Nolan their Kevin Feige and have him be in charge of everything, but Christopher Nolan is not interested in that, I don't think.
And Christopher Nolan's not right for that. No, he's not. Those Batman movies are awesome, but like we just said, they're not comic book movies. You could not make a Wonder Woman movie. Christopher Nolan just could not do that at all. It would be horrible. Yeah, and he wouldn't be interested in that. I'm sure he's interested in getting away from comic books for a while because he put a big chunk of his life towards it. Yeah.
So, I would like to see DC get their act together too. But that's why this is an exciting summer for some of that stuff.
Yeah.
So we'll be seeing Man of Steel. And we were talking about this the other day off the podcast, but Fox and their X-Men movies, even when Fox makes a good X-Men movie these days, it seems kind of pitiful next to what Marvel's doing.
Yeah, it's still, like X-Men First Class was a pretty good movie, but it's still not
They just can't
not
go
what you really want, I guess.
Yeah. And the thing is, clearly Marvel isn't alienating a single fucking person with what they're doing because these movies are bigger than ever. Iron Man 3, $175 million this weekend, second biggest opening weekend of all time. Box office, that's bigger than any of the Christopher Nolan Batman movies. That's bigger than any single superhero ever. And that's just kind of incredible.
Yep.
And they're doing that by they're not doing that by broadening their, and trying to ignore the comic book side. They are fucking embracing things about
like
comic book movies.
A dude shoots fire out of his mouth in this movie.
Yeah.
That happens.
Yeah.
That fucking... And it doesn't make sense. And yes, it does come out of nowhere. And no, it doesn't come up again.
But that movie will make over $1 billion.
Yeah, exactly.
So, pretty cool.
You can take all of your fucking psychological... your Christopher Nolan movies... But
that's the thing I really do love about Iron Man 3, kind of bringing this discussion back around full circle, is I think why the Iron Man film series is kind of my favorite superhero series right now. And for the record, I don't count Christopher Nolan Batman in that, because they're not superhero movies or comic book movies. They're a completely different thing.
If I did, I would still say Iron Man. Like, I really like those movies, and they're good movies, but I would still say Spider-Man, even though Spider-Man 3 sucks, and I don't like Amazing Spider-Man that much. Like, Spider-Man 1 and 2 are fucking awesome.
They're great, yeah. But for me, it's just
better than any fucking Batman movie.
But anyway, I just think, here, I really love what they've done with this series. I know some people have problems with Iron Man 2, but even then, I think I'm interested in the way these filmmakers have approached Tony Stark and Iron Man. They feel different than any other superhero movies, but they're still very much comic book movies. They embrace their comic book roots, and they don't sacrifice an ounce of the psychological complexity. Tony Stark is a complex figure, and he's played by an actor doing great dramatic work.
Yeah.
And having a whole ensemble that does great work around him. And I just think this has been such a satisfying ride with these Iron Man movies and Avengers in the middle there.
Yeah, without a doubt. So,
all right, that's Iron Man 3.
Yes, it is.
All right. Let's transition.
Can't wait till we get our Mandarin movie. Just it's just Ben Kingsley, dealing with his fucking, substance addiction. That's the demon in the bottle story. That's when we actually get it. It's going to be the fake Mandarin.
Nice. All right, so that's Iron Man 3. Sean, do you want to talk about Doctor Who?
Yeah, I think it's about time.
All right, so as always on this podcast, we talk every new episode of Doctor Who. This week we have episode 12 of the season overall.
12 by my counting, if you count the snowman, which you should count because it's a fucking
and in this episode is explicitly referenced.
Yeah, exactly. Like deeply referenced.
Yeah.
So you fucking assholes who don't count the snowman, go fuck yourselves. Count the snowman.
Yes.
Let's all get on the same page here.
Right. And this is the 6th episode of this current run they're doing of the spring 2013 episodes.
Yeah, by your crazy numbering.
I don't consider that the definitive numbering. I'm just saying this is the 6th episode we've had in this run of episodes.
Like every single time we've talked about this, you always call it by your crazy
That is what I think about it, though, as because, again, the Bells of St. John was a fucking season premiere.
I mean, not going to argue you on that point, but it's a season premiere, but it came in the middle of the season. And they fucked up, and I'm not going to ignore that they fucked up in doing that by calling that episode 1.
Okay.
Or calling the Snowman episode 0. Fuck you.
Yeah, that's stupid. Snowman was definitely episode 6.
Yeah.
All right, so anyway, this was episode 12 overall. You can just leave it at that. The Crimson Aura, as they say many times.
Yes.
In the episode, written by Mark Gatiss. Who we've talked about before as being not a particularly great Doctor Who writer, but this one concerns Madame Vostra and her investigative squad, Jenny and Strax.
And I just have to make this X-Files reference because it so feels like a Lone Gunman episode from the X-Files, where if you're someone who does not watch the X-Files or didn't, the Lone Gunmen were these 3 sort of computer nerd dudes who were sort of friends of Mulder and Scully. They got introduced in season 3, and then this is sort of a tradition. A lot of these TV shows, and Doctor Who used to do it when they had a more sane, season run of having they would call them Doctor Light episodes of not having the main characters be the main feature of most of the episode. The X-Files did that. They had the Lone Gunmen. I'm calling these guys the Lone Gunmen.
Okay.
That's what they are to me.
Yeah,
so.
And I really like them. Yeah. But anyway, so when we do Doctor Light episodes, though, sometimes we get a masterpiece like Blink. And sometimes we get the worst episode of the modern run, Love and Monsters.
And let's not even limit that to the modern run. One of the worst episodes of Doctor Who ever made.
Recap it for the people, Sean. Season 2, Love and Monsters. What is the main takeaway from that episode?
Concrete blowjob.
As I like to call it, the blowjob slab.
Yeah.
That is where Moaning Myrtle from Harry Potter is a guest star.
I forgot that. It is true. Yeah.
And the guy kind of falls in love with her, but then she becomes a slab, and then they imply that the slab gives the main guy character blowjobs at the end of the episode. And it is one of the worst hours of television I have ever seen.
And what's the monster called? Like the Absorbaloff?
Yeah.
It's so bad. God, that episode is so fucking bad.
So the Crimson Horror, it's not anything like that, right?
No. I just want to say, it is so fucking impressive that you can make a fucking episode of television in, like, modern times that is, like, so much worse than, like, episodes they made in the fucking 60s when they literally, their budget was the fucking money they could, like, get out of their couch cushions.
Yeah, it's
God
incredible.
damn it. Jesus, that episode's so bad.
Oh, I agree. I mean, I saw, some classic episodes of Doctor Who, or one that I didn't particularly like when we were watching the Sixth Doctor stuff.
Yeah.
And
there's no good Sixth Doctor stuff.
But so much better than Love and Monsters.
Even that, like, honestly, there might not even be a Sixth Doctor, like, serial that is worse than Love and Monsters.
Yeah.
Like, I can't think of one off the top of my head that's that bad.
Anyway, the Crimson Horror is infinitely better than Love and Monsters.
Yeah.
Because just about anything would be. No blink or anything. But
yeah.
I liked this episode. I enjoyed it. I think it's got a lot of problems.
Yeah,
it's
I
messy,
think it's okay. Like, and I don't think we're going to disagree on this episode in any way. Like, okay. I just think I got kind of annoyed at stuff that you just sort of like, that's really dumb, but it's really funny.
I just laughed my ass off through it. And
I was like, I just don't think I was in a good mood to watch that episode because it's like, it is so ridiculous and over the top in places that's like, I was kind of a little bit tired when I was watching it, and I was like, but sort of excited to see what they're going to do, and I was like, man, this is so dumb. Holy shit, this got really dumb.
Yeah, and I made some notes here, and I think, for me, I'll just say what I liked about it is I really do like the Madame Vostra, the lone gunman, basically.
Yeah.
I like those characters a lot, and there was I thought they made some good use of them here. I really liked that Jenny was kind of the main one here, because we've gotten a lot of Strax, we've gotten a lot of Madame Vostra, haven't gotten a lot of Jenny yet. I liked having Jenny be kind of the focal point there.
I guess, but it also made me realize why we haven't got a whole lot of Jenny, because she is super bland. Like, when outside of Madame Vostra in the Santarin, all their names, I can't remember, but I'm just going to call them Lynx, because, goddammit, that is the only Santarin to me. I like Lynx.
I know. I mean, and I'll say that, I also thought Strax was fucking great in this episode. I love Strax so goddamn much, because the Santarins...
I don't know, they didn't work for me as well as they did in, like, the Snowmen. Like, it didn't feel
no, and this is the thing. I
didn't think they were used... Like, I like those characters, but I didn't feel like they were used particularly well in this episode.
I thought they were used okay, but what I would say is it's a Mark Gatiss episode where he's not good at writing characters.
Yeah.
And he just... I wish they had given this episode to a different writer, but... to be fair, I looked through the list. I like this far and away more than any other Mark Gatiss episode he's written, and I not even ironically, I just think this is a better episode than anything else he's done. And it's got a lot of problems.
Yeah, it does.
But I enjoyed it. I really did have fun with it, and I will say I got about maybe the opening credits, like where you get the theme song, about 5 minutes in, and I realized, okay, this is this kind of Doctor Who episode, and I was basically kind of working on some other stuff while I watched it. It was like, this is an episode I pay 60% attention to, and that's kind of the way to watch this one.
That's true.
There are some episodes of Doctor Who that are like that. They are not meant to be, you sit down and you pay attention to them like the Pandorica opens putting a puzzle together. It doesn't reward that. It's not for that. This would be like a laundry folding episode.
Yeah, and I think that just makes it a bad episode. Like, I just don't...
You think it's bad?
It's like...
Okay.
Yeah, like that's...
I don't necessarily
think... right about that's what it is, but I don't think that that's a good thing that that's what it is.
I'm not saying that's a good thing, but I'm saying that that's just kind of the nature of Doctor Who, and we get those a couple times a season. Not every season, but we definitely got a couple of those, if not full seasons of those, during the Robert Downey Jr., Russell T. Davies years. Robert Downey Jr. is the next Doctor.
Yeah.
No, Russell T. Davies years.
I thought you were going to say Robert Holmes years, and I was like, what are you talking about?
No.
Those were the best years, goddammit!
Yes. I have nothing but respect for Robert Holmes, of course, but no, Russell T. Davies years, and I think, the first two Stephen Moffat years, I think I think we were mostly bereft of those, but...
There's a pirate episode.
There's a pirate episode, yeah.
There was a pirate episode.
And I like this more than the pirate episode because this was unintentionally funny.
Yeah, I gave more enjoyment out of this. Like, this is a worse episode than the pirate episode, but the pirate episode is just super bland. Like, like, there are just parts in this episode that is really dumb, and you can, like, even I laughed at some of the really dumb shit.
Okay.
Even though I was in the mood, too.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think we need to talk about this episode forever, but it's just, let's see. There were just a lot of, basically when I'm looking at my notes, I can't say any big overall stuff about this episode, but moment to moment, there were a lot of moments I enjoyed, even as a whole. No, of course it doesn't work. It's a stupid story.
Oh God, it is.
And when we get to the thing about, like, here's where I realize what kind of episode this is, and I will guarantee you, I will rewatch this episode every time I watch through this season because I would have fun seeing it again. Because when we get to the shit like where Diana Rigg is like, we're wondering, well, all right, who is Mr. Sweet? And it's an alien like nursing at her breast on her.
So fucking dumb.
And I laughed my ass off. That was so funny. It was horrible, but, like, you've got Dame Diana Rigg, and she's got a fucking alien nursing in her chest, and that's the villainous motivation.
So fucking
it was horrible.
And it doesn't even make sense. What the fuck is that thing? I thought, like, the Crimson Horror was a disease. What is this weird parasite alien?
Well, they got the disease from it. Like, it's venom.
But no, like her thing was that it's like the Black Plague. Like, that's what she said. And then it's like, no, it's this dumb parasite. Where did this thing come from? How did it survive? What the fuck? No.
Oh, it's got plot holes.
And, like, what is, like, psychically, like, they imply that it's, like, intelligent in some way. It's like somehow communicating with, like,
yeah.
God, it's so dumb.
But Diana Rigg, I want to point out a fun connection here. Let me see if I can bring up the name of the other. Oh, Liam coming. Okay. Cold War was the other Mark Gatiss episode of this year, which, that to me is like the pirate episode, just super bland, don't give a shit about it. I enjoyed this so much more.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Even though I would still say Cold War is weirdly a better episode.
It's got a clearer sense of arc.
Yeah.
That, like, there's a character development that happens in it.
Yep.
That you can see more clearly. But anyway.
They play a really nice Duran Duran song.
Kind of.
Yeah, I mean, you hear, like, a measure from it, so...
Okay. Anyway.
More Duran Duran than is in this episode, so...
The main guest star in that episode was Liam Cunningham, who is currently a star of Game of Thrones. He plays Davos. And Dame Diana Rigg, in this episode, main guest star, plays Lady Olenna in Game of Thrones. And they're both really good on that show. And she's much more subtle on Game of Thrones.
I should hope so.
Yeah.
I should really hope so, or else all my enthusiasm in watching Game of Thrones would just go right out the window.
No. Diana Rigg is fantastic on Game of Thrones. And, Season 3 has been better for her presence. But, in any case, it's just kind of funny that both of the Mark Gatiss episodes this year have a major Game of Thrones sort of side character on them. But that's just... Anyway, so it was kind of fun to see Diana Rigg there. And in the beginning, she seems somewhat sane for, like, 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But then, I was just cracking up some of the stuff she has to do, and it is so funny, because this is like British acting royalty who's delivering lines where she's just like, die! And, she's like, I will destroy humanity! And it's like her, she has no motivation, she just wants to destroy the world. And then, I think the part where I laughed hardest is that Strax just fucking shoots her. She falls down.
Falls to death. She's just like, am I still watching Doctor Who? Like, this got weirdly really dark.
It did. It got really macabre, and I love that how Matt Smith plays his reaction shots is like, what am I doing? Like he's
it looked like Matt Smith for a second was like, what the fuck is this episode? Did I walk into the wrong set?
Yeah. And I think that was the perfect.
I walked onto the worst episode of Game of Thrones ever somehow. What's going on?
But anyway, the daughter comes down and is talking to Diana Rigg, and she's like, and Diana Rigg with her dying breath says, "I will never forgive you."
No. She asks her for she's like, "Forgive me," and then the daughter's like, "Never." She's like, "That's my daughter."
That's what it was. It's great. It's awesome.
And then the little Mr. Sweet crawls out. And then you think we're just gonna let it get away, and it's like, no, she fucking brutally just like crushes it over and over again. And it's like there's like gooey like green blood splattering everywhere. It's like this got really unpleasant all of a sudden. Like it was just like
this episode.
What am I watching anymore?
This is the Grindhouse episode of Doctor Who. This is the episode of Doctor Who you would see in like a shitty porn theater with like just like sticky stains all over the ground and torn up seats.
It's just like, and it's so weird because I don't know how you make, like, because it doesn't feel intentional at all. Like, it feels like it's a fucking accident that it's like this. But I don't know how you do that. Like, I don't know how this episode, it's so weird. It's just such a weird episode of Doctor Who. And it's just like, it just like was making me think of, like, it actually weirdly reminded me of classic Who in a lot of ways, of like, especially how like the guys like the Crimson Horror is, you're just sort of like painted red and it looks really cheesy and dumb and you're like, that's stupid. And then it's like, and how over the top the villain was really reminded me of classic Who, but it was like, in classic Who, like, it's like the budget was so low and it was like so much the acting like around it was really bad that it's like it ended up being really charming, and like the atmosphere and like the like it being like shot like on fucking like really shitty digital cameras and everything that's like made it just like made me like accept and enjoy it. Whereas this is just like there's a certain level of quality at this point that is just like why, how, why, and how.
Well, anyway, I mean, I'll say some things. Let me say some things I legitimately liked about the episode, because I do think Mark Gatiss, as I've said, he does not have a good handle on character ever. But he had a clearer handle on it here than I think he did in Cold War with the Doctor. At least the Doctor, like the words coming out of his mouth sounded like the Doctor to me for the most part.
Even closer. Then, like, I guess it was closer, but it didn't still feel like.
I liked some of the banter. I laughed at some of the banter between him and Clara. There were some good lines here and there. I will admit it's a terrible line, but I liked, I've got a sonic screwdriver. Yeah, I've got a chair. And then she just shoves it through the... I loved that. That was funny. Yeah, it was stupid, but it was funny. And then I thought, I did think he wrote the Vostra investigation gang okay. Not great, but when Strax talked, I laughed. There were Strax jokes, and they sounded like Strax jokes, and I liked those. Vostra was not particularly used, but...
Yeah, she was barely even in it.
Yeah, I thought Jenny was semi-interesting. To me, I thought the actress was okay, but
there's that really awkward scene when she was breaking into was it Sweetville? Sweetville. She's breaking in there, and then it's like she's in that line, and then she just like there's like that other lady standing next to her, and she's just like, make a distraction, faint, and she's just met this lady, and she's like just trying to convince her, and it's like she spent like a minute trying to convince her, and she's just like, I'll pay you some money. It's like, why did you just do that? Why do you do that up front? Like, this is, like, the most awkward conversation ever. You're just, like, me telling this, like, random person I meet in the street, it's like, make a distraction right now. Just make a distraction.
Yeah.
It's like, what? Are you fucking insane?
And then I liked that they did bring these characters back to address how, he'll hold the Doctor accountable for the Clara stuff, and, like, he has to talk to them. It's not, they didn't do much with it.
Yeah, no,
they didn't do anything with it.
It was what they did with it was, Clara's still alive? And he's like, I guess. That's what they did with it.
But, it's there. I wanted to...
I guess.
Okay.
Yeah. They do that really dumb, like, really, really dumb, like, was this made in the fucking 1950s joke of the guy fainting 3 times? They'd make that joke 3 times. Okay. It was not funny the first time. It wasn't funny the second time. It sure as shit was not funny when they hadn't made that joke for 30 minutes and then they brought it back for the end to be like, remember when we did this before? No, it wasn't that. It was real cracker. It's like, no, it wasn't, and it's still not.
And I'll admit, that is when I laughed at it, not because of how they intended me to laugh, but it was because, oh my god, you're bringing this back.
Yeah, you really think this joke was funny enough? Like, you really think a guy fainting is, like, funny enough to do that 3 times?
What I loved about it, and I say loved in the ironic way here, is what I loved about it is just their commitment to, we are going to have him see every alien in this fucking episode. He's going to faint at every fucking alien.
And the first time it doesn't even make sense because it's to Madame Vostra, and you can clearly see through that veil that she is a lizard person. There is no hiding that. It is so obvious.
And when we've seen Madame Vostra before, it's always taken for granted that the clients understand this, and they're so desperate they go to her anyway.
Yeah. That they are aware that they're going to some crazy lizard
it's not a secret.
Yeah. I mean, it's a secret, but it's not a secret to the people she's talking
to. Right. Yeah. So that was kind of weird.
God, that's fucking so dumb.
What did you think of the very end where Clara goes back home and the kid? I mean, this is clearly
that was the worst part of the whole episode. Okay, because it literally felt like something out of the Sarah Jane Adventures. Like, I know you haven't watched any of that show.
Yeah,
it felt like they got a writer from like one of the worst episodes from the Sarah Jane Adventures and like a director from one of those episodes and like brought them in.
I mean, it's clearly set up for the Neil Gaiman episode.
Yeah.
We've seen in the... So Neil Gaiman chose to do something with that, but do you think it's just whoever wrote the transition scene there was not...
That was so dumb and out of nowhere. Just like, she just goes home and then they're like, you're a time traveler. We have all these... It's like... No, like, the Doctor covers his tracks well enough that you would not be able to find out that Clara is secretly a time traveler, and nobody would fucking believe you. Nobody would fucking believe you.
Of course not.
How are you... They were, like, trying to blackmail her into bringing her with them on, going through time. It's like, no! And I didn't think, like, the child, at least, like, you know, it was just that one scene, but the child actors didn't seem, like, that great. And it was just like... Yeah. Man, this scene is dumb and awkward and feels super out of place and just blah.
So hopefully Neil Gaiman does it better?
Yeah, like hopefully, like, you know, like he really, like he's trying to do something with those characters. He needs those kids for some reason, and so it's like, and he will like, and it will work in his episode. Like, I don't necessarily think that this will somehow make the Neil Gaiman episode bad, but it made the ending to this episode really dumb and stupid.
I mean, what disappointed me most about it is that, you know, it felt like if there was going to be any arc potential for this episode at all, they'd mentioned a couple times, you know, the Clara from the 1800s, and then she sees her, and I would like to see something with that. Like, wouldn't that fuck with Clara? But no, we just cut to black. Or cut to next time on Doctor Who.
Yeah. Well, but it's not even like, because she says it's like, you know, I forget, like, it's like the painting is from 18th century London, because that's where Snowman was. I forget where this episode's set. But it's like they're trying to get to London.
Right.
And she's like, no, I wasn't in London in 18th century. I was wherever I was for the course of this episode. It's like to somehow imply that, like, she's sort of, like, piecing it together when I'm just like, that just means you could just go to 18th century London at some point in the future because you're fucking time traveling. Like,
but they don't do anything with it, and that's the problem.
Yeah, it's just like that line is dropped, and it's like obviously they don't do anything with it, but the implication of what they are going to do with it doesn't actually make sense with time travel.
I also think this episode structurally, obviously, I mean, we say this is a Dr. Light. It's not.
Yeah, it's not. It feels like it was going to be for, like, the first half, and then...
I mean, basically the Vostra gang is gone for the last half until...
Once the Doctor comes in and he's all, like, Frankenstein monster-y, and then he just goes into a closet, and you hear the sonic screwdriver noise. It's like, I'm fine!
Yeah, did I miss something there, or was that...
No, that's what happens. He goes into a closet, she closes the door on him, you hear sonic screwdriver noises, and then he just pops out and he's totally fine. That's it. That's all that happens. There's literally no explanation. None at all. He doesn't even give a technobabble bullshit. That's it.
Okay, because I was having a Twitter conversation with another writer on our site at that time, and yeah, I thought I might have missed something.
Nope, you didn't.
Okay.
Trust me, you did not.
All right, well, that's that.
It's like one of the... It is like repairing a fence with a sonic screwdriver level of sonic screwdriver bullshit. Of just like, come on. Like, you're not even trying to justify this.
Alright, so that's weird. But yeah, I mean, it's just as soon as the Doctor comes in, it's just a regular Doctor Who episode. I'll admit I also liked the scene, where the flashback where he gives his story and they do it all in old-timey footage.
I like the idea of it, but it was just such a heavy, like, 5-minute long block of this is just raw exposition. Yeah. I was like... Man, this is clunky.
Oh, it's crazy.
I like the idea of, like, the flashback with, like, the stylistic elements, but man, you're just giving the, like, largest exposition dump and just desperately trying to hide it behind a sepia tone filter.
Yeah, and I thought the one thing that I thought was fun about it wasn't just the filter, but that it felt like we were getting, like, just a traditional Doctor Who episode at, like, 5x speed.
Yeah, exactly.
And I thought that was kind of funny, but again, I don't know if that was the intent. Probably not.
Yeah, no.
I don't think there was any, like, bigger purpose there. Yeah, it's just an exposition dump. I mean, it's a clunky episode, and I think one of the weirdest things about it to me is that it's supposed to be a mystery, quote-unquote, and we know Mark Gatiss can write good mystery. He did 2 episodes of Sherlock, and they're 2 good episodes of Sherlock with interesting mysteries. Yeah. And this is an awful mystery that isn't really even a mystery, because at one point Diana Rigg's just like, I'll flash you, my alien monster.
That's a great expression. I'll flash you, my alien monster. I'm going to use that to pick up girls from now on.
Okay.
Maybe you want to come back to my place? I'll flash you, my alien monster.
So, anything else?
That's my girl. Oh, man. God, that's so fucking dumb.
All right.
So dumb.
This episode, my final word on it, so bad it's good.
Yeah, like, it is definitely... for me, like, I can definitely see how you can take this as so bad it's good. And I think if I watch it again, I would take it that way. I was like I said, when I watched it the first time, I was not in a mood for something that is so bad it's good. I was just like, man, is this dumb. Holy shit, I have not watched something this dumb since I watched the ending of the last episode of Doctor Who, but that was done in a completely different way.
Yeah, I mean, does anything in this episode approach those levels of dumb?
No, like, few things approach the levels of dumb of literally hitting a reset button at the end of your episode. But
yeah. But I think the alien monster suckling at her teat is close. And
Jesus. God, and then, like, the other part of this episode that is, like, because it's, like, so much of it is really dumb, and is, like, it's obviously meant to mostly be comedic, because that's what the Lone Gunman team is really there for. But, like, there's just that super dark subplot of her daughter who is blind.
And really graphic makeup.
Yeah, with, like, these, like, horrible scars around her eyes, and, like, her eyes are all, like, pale and milky. And then it's like, and she's like, she's completely alone. Her mother obviously like hates her and is just using her. You find out that she's blind. Like, the explanation earlier is that she's blind because her father like cut her up with like a broken bottle or something. Then you find out, no, it's because her mom was actually performing these horrific scientific experiments on her. Just because there's no justification for the villain why she's fucking around with this parasite monster. It makes no sense.
Or why she wants to destroy humanity.
Yeah. Where she got that rocket from.
I love that she says, like, don't worry, I'll be immune, because that's why she used her daughter, was to make herself immune.
That's
what the fuck is the point of being immune if you're going to kill everyone on Earth?
Yeah, exactly. It makes no sense. It's like, you find out that she actually experimented on her daughter. It's like, throughout the course of the episode, like, the only thing her daughter has is
Frankenstein doctor?
Yeah, who's like can't talk because he's like partially paralyzed from the Crimson Horror, and she like calls him her monster. And that was the only part of the whole episode I liked. I liked that character. I liked the daughter because it was like, this is like her backstory is so sad. Like, this character is so sad and tragic. And the actress is actually legitimately good.
That's like, Diana Rick's daughter.
Yeah.
Actually.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. It's like, she's the only like person like okay, Matt Smith is still good, but like his material is so bad. It's like, that's the only character that I was like, I actually kind of like this character. I like the way this character is acted, and it's like, but then it's like, just like, I don't know, like, me actually liking that character maybe is why I couldn't take that episode as so bad it's good, because it's like, I legitimately attached to that character, and I was like, I'm actually kind of concerned for this character. I like this character. I don't want to see bad things happen to this character. And it was like, which made like all the humor around it and all the dumb shit just like, man, this girl has had this terrible life, and there's just all this dumb, like, really shitty humor, and there's just like really shitty plot stuff, and it's like, you're not doing this actually legitimately okay character any service at all.
She seems like the kind of character who, in a 10th Doctor story, David Tennant would have to say, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, at the end of the hour.
Yeah, exactly. And it would be like, it is kind of weird, like, heartbreaking in a way, and you're like, and we have to leave this character now, because he's kind of in a better place. Then this is just like, no. And it's just like, this is all fucked. Her, like, man, like, she's still horribly scarred and blind at the end. She has to live with the, like, her mother is dead now, and then, like, she, like, killed the parasite. She has to live with that, like all this shit with her for the rest of her life.
All right, so one other thing I want to note: did you think this episode was just way too happy with its own title, where they just kept saying Crimson Horror?
Crimson Horror.
And then, like, at one point, the Doctor hears and is like, "Oh, that's a great name." It's like, we get it, Mark Gatiss. You found an episode title you liked.
Yeah.
Bully for you.
Yeah.
Write a good episode next time. It kind of seemed like the second episode in a row where they had a title and then tried to write an episode out of it.
Yeah.
And that's not the best way to write an episode.
No, it is not. The other thing that I thought was really funny about this episode when I was watching it was just sort of like near the beginning when like you like start hearing sort of like the backstory like about like Sweetville and stuff, and like you get to that meeting where she's like giving like the religious sermon, and I was like, is this going to be like the next Bioshock game?
Yeah.
Like, you have this fucking like utopian, like supposed to be utopian society built on these like utopian principles, but it's like clearly isn't going to work and fall apart. And I was like, that is just like such a weird connection because it felt so similar to Bioshock Infinite.
I got a Bioshock feeling throughout the episode,
yeah.
Just like visually too, design wise. I even think this is one of the few episodes of the Stephen Moffat era where, and maybe the only one that I thought the production values just kind of sucked. and it looks bad. Like usually, even like Cold War is a wonderfully directed episode. It looks really neat.
Yeah,
it's got a really nice set. Even the pirate episode, good set, good direction.
Yeah,
it's the writing in all those cases, and this was one where I just thought the direction was flaccid. And then, like when you get to the action scenes at the end with the rocket going off and stuff, it's incoherent.
Yeah,
and that's
that.
Yeah, and Doctor Who has been one of the best produced series on television for several years now, and this very much did not feel like that.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
Oh well.
Yeah.
We get Neil Gaiman next week.
Yeah, exactly.
Hope it's good. I want to get one more good episode out of this season.
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah.
I will be really interested to see when this season is over, to look at it in the balance and feel like, see what
it's such a weird fucking, just everything about this season is so weird. This has got to be like the weirdest season of television ever. Like, it's just so bizarre. It's all over the place, like in terms of episode quality, what the episodes are about, just like character arcs and how like it handles character arcs, how the season's scheduled, where it's like you don't even know how to number the goddamn thing because they put a fucking Christmas special in the middle of the season that's like integral to the entire season. It's like so crazy. It's so fucking weird.
Yeah, it's weird. And
I'm looking forward to getting the season box set and just being like, I own this crazy fucking thing now. I feel
like the box set
put it to rest.
The box set should like fall apart when you open it up.
It's just like you open it up and it just like turns into dust, and you're like, oh, maybe it's for the better.
And I mean, the thing is, this season has had some damn good episodes.
And that's the weirdest part about it, is they have had some really good episodes.
So like, I would put this above Russell T Davies season 2, where the only good episode was Girl in the Fireplace and everything else was kind of meh.
Yeah.
But
at least like season 2
as a story they tell over 30.
Yeah, and it like feels like a season. It's like it has a like. Even though the quality bar isn't high, it has like an average, like you can read, like sort of like, get the feeling of the season, like the quality of it is sort of like relatively consistent. Here it's just like, you'll get like a really awesome episode like Hyde, and then the next week the fucking episode ends with them hitting a reset button. You're like, what the fuck? And then right after that you get one of the dumbest things, like dumbest episodes of Doctor Who. It's just like, what is going on? What is going on?
Yeah. Well, hopefully, I really hope next week we have a more substantive Doctor Who discussion rather than...
Then this was so fucking dumb! Yeah. I feel like I've just been saying that over and over and over again. But man, was it dumb.
Yeah, this was a dumb episode. But I had fun with it. So, that's not a qualitative statement.
Exactly.
I had fun with it. So next week we'll be talking about Nightmare in Silver, the first Neil Gaiman episode of this season. He wrote one last season, The Doctor's Wife, which is one of the all-time great Doctor Who stories.
Yep.
And hope he can fix the Cybermen.
Yeah, exactly. That's like what I'm most want to get out of that episode, is for like the Cybermen to not be fucked anymore, because I love the Cybermen. They're great. Yeah.
And I hope we just get a good Cybermen story.
Yep.
So, because I think they've been used effectively occasionally in New Who, but always with some kinks.
Yeah.
So, hope it's good. And after that, we've got The Name of the Doctor, the season finale.
And shit, we're already at the end of the season.
I know. That's all right. And then after that, every week we will talk about other stuff, I guess.
We'll just start talking about episodes of Doctor Who, and we'll just start going in reverse. Like, We'll talk about The Name of the Doctor again, and just like go backwards through this season, then move into season 6 until the next season of Doctor Who airs.
Okay. No, I think we'll have plenty to talk about. Next week I don't know exactly what the topic will be, but we will probably do something Star Trek related, because Into Darkness comes out in 2 weeks.
That is true.
And that we will obviously have a Star Trek Into Darkness episode.
Yeah.
And, more coming up for different movies. Tell us if there's a certain movie you have a burning desire for us to talk about on the podcast.
And we will probably ignore you unless it's a movie we would see anyways.
Right.
Yeah, but I'm not going to go see a movie because some asshole who listens to the podcast tells me to.
I agree, but I want to give people the illusion of control.
I don't even want that.
Okay.
No, nobody has any control. Like, ignoring the podcast, like, over your own lives, over, like, anything that happens to you, nobody has control. You're not in control. So you have no power.
So the general message of this episode you want to send is fuck the listeners.
No, I'm
kidding.
Not fuck the listeners. Like, be real with the listeners, and like, if you haven't figured out that this is what life is yet, like, this is what life is. And, like, get on it, because it sucks.
Very true.
Yep. And man, that episode of Doctor Who was fucking dumb.